Welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving into a book that has the power to completely transform the way you think about success, failure, and personal growth. It's Mindset, The New Psychology of Success by Carol S. Dweck. In this groundbreaking book, Dweck introduces us to the concept of fixed and growth mindsets and shows us how the beliefs we hold about our abilities can shape every aspect of our lives, from our careers to relationships to even how we handle setbacks. Whether you're looking to achieve more in your personal or professional life or just want to better understand how to unlock your full potential, Dweck's insights will challenge you to rethink how you approach challenges. So, if you're ready to shift your mindset and start growing in new ways, keep watching. The New Psychology of Success by Carol S. Dweck. Chapter 1. Understanding Mindsets. When I first began my research journey, something happened that truly changed my perspective. I was passionate about studying how people cope with failure, and I decided to investigate it by observing how children dealt with difficult tasks. To do this, I brought kids into a room one by one, made them feel at ease, and then gave them a set of puzzles to solve. The first puzzles were easy, but the next set was much harder. As they struggled, I closely watched how they tackled the challenges, paying attention to both their thought processes and emotional responses. I expected to see varying reactions to the difficulties, but what I saw surprised me. One 10-year-old boy, faced with the hard puzzles, leaned forward in his chair, rubbed his hands together, smacked his lips, and declared, "I love a challenge." Another student, sweating and focused, looked up with a pleased expression and said with certainty, "I was hoping this would be informative." I thought to myself, what's going on here? I had always assumed that failure was something you either coped with or didn't. Never did I imagine that anyone could enjoy failure. Were these children some kind of anomaly, or were they onto something profound? Everyone has a role model, someone who influenced them at a critical moment. These children became my role models. They clearly understood something I didn't. They believed that intelligence and abilities could be developed. This mindset allowed them to turn what I would have considered a failure into an opportunity for growth. I had grown up thinking that human qualities, like intelligence, were fixed. Either you were smart or you weren't, and if you failed, it meant you weren't smart. For me, the goal was to avoid failure at all costs, which meant trying to avoid challenges, mistakes, and struggles altogether. But what these kids knew, and what I learned, is that our traits, like intelligence, can be cultivated. They didn't view their struggles as failures. Instead, they saw them as opportunities to learn and get smarter. I realized that my belief in fixed qualities was holding me back, while their belief in growth was propelling them forward. The debate over whether people are born with fixed traits or whether they can change has been going on for centuries. People have speculated about the reasons for differences between individuals, whether they are smarter, more moral, or more talented, and whether these differences are unchangeable. Historically, many believed there was a biological foundation for these differences, such as skull shape or, more recently, genetic makeup. Others pointed to external factors like upbringing, environment, and education, arguing that these could influence and even change a person's abilities. Alfred Binet, the creator of the IQ test, was a strong advocate for the idea that intelligence is not a fixed trait. In fact, he designed the test not to measure a person's inherent intelligence but to identify children who were struggling in school so that new educational methods could help them improve. According to Binet, intelligence can be developed through practice, training, and specific methods. He once wrote, "We protest against the brutal pessimism that says intelligence cannot change. Through practice and training, we can become more intelligent." So, which perspective is correct? Today, most experts agree that it's not a matter of either nature or nurture, but a combination of both. Our genetics do play a role in shaping who we are, but our experiences, efforts, and the environment also significantly influence how we develop. Researchers like Robert Sternberg argue that what really matters in achieving expertise is not raw talent but the effort and engagement you put into learning. This aligns with Binet's view that intelligence can be nurtured. Now, let's focus on how these beliefs about intelligence and ability affect us personally. The mindset you hold about your abilities can deeply influence the way you approach challenges and setbacks in life. For the past 3 decades, my research has shown that whether you believe your abilities are fixed or can be developed will shape how you live your life and whether you achieve your goals. If you believe that your qualities are set in stone, you are likely to feel a constant pressure to prove yourself. The fixed mindset makes people think they must continuously demonstrate that they are smart, capable, and worthy. People with this mindset tend to fear failure because they believe that failing means they are inherently deficient in some way. I, for example, grew up with this mindset largely shaped by my 6th grade teacher who made students' IQ scores public and only allowed the highest scorers to take on certain roles, reinforcing the belief that intelligence defined a person's worth. People with a fixed mindset see challenges as a threat to their self-image. Every test, every task, every interaction is a measure of their worth. They might wonder, will I succeed or fail? Will I be seen as smart or dumb? Will I be accepted or rejected? The constant pressure to prove themselves leaves little room for growth or learning. But there is another mindset, the growth mindset. People with this mindset believe that their abilities and qualities can be developed through effort, learning, and persistence. In this mindset, traits like intelligence are not something you're born with and stuck with. Instead, they are the starting point for growth and development. While people may have different aptitudes and temperaments, the growth mindset fosters the belief that, through hard work and learning, anyone can improve and reach their full potential. This mindset doesn't mean that everyone can become a genius like Einstein or a virtuoso like Beethoven, but it means that with enough dedication and training, people can achieve remarkable things. For example, many famous figures such as Charles Darwin, Leo Tolstoy, Ben Hogan, and Cindy Sherman were once considered ordinary or lacking talent. But their passion and hard work allowed them to rise to greatness. The growth mindset leads to a love for challenges and a willingness to persevere even when things get tough. It shifts the focus from proving how great you are to improving and becoming better. People with a growth mindset don't fear failure, they embrace it as part of the learning process. This mindset fosters resilience and a deep desire for self-improvement, which is why people with a growth mindset often thrive in difficult situations. To illustrate how the two mindsets affect us, let's imagine you're a young adult having a tough day. You receive a disappointing grade in a class, get a parking ticket, and your best friend brushes off your call. How would you respond? Those with a fixed mindset might think, I'm a failure. I'm not good enough. They might spiral into negative thoughts, feeling worthless and helpless. They might even react by withdrawing from the world, avoiding challenges, and giving up. Their negative emotions are amplified by the belief that their abilities are fixed and failure is a sign of permanent inadequacy. On the other hand, someone with a growth mindset would likely think, I need to study harder next time, be more careful with parking, and check on my friend. They would view the setback as an opportunity to learn and improve. The growth mindset allows for a more constructive and positive response to setbacks, which in turn leads to greater resilience and the ability to bounce back from difficulties. So, what's the real difference here? It's not that people with a growth mindset never feel upset or frustrated, they do. But their perspective on challenges is different. They see setbacks as temporary and as opportunities to grow, while people with a fixed mindset see failure as a reflection of their unchangeable abilities. When we teach people to adopt the growth mindset, we don't just give them a set of motivational tips. Instead, we offer a framework for understanding how beliefs about abilities shape behavior. Once people recognize the power of effort, persistence, and learning, they begin to approach challenges with confidence and optimism. Over time, this mindset leads to greater achievement and personal growth. Now, consider your own mindset. Do you believe that your abilities, intelligence, and personality are fixed, or do you believe they can be developed? Reflecting on these beliefs and seeing how they influence your responses to challenges can be the first step toward embracing a growth mindset and unlocking your full potential. Chapter 2: Exploring Mindsets. When I was younger, I had an idealized vision of the life I wanted to create, a partner who was charming and successful, someone who could be considered the epitome of excellence. I imagined a career that was glamorous yet not too demanding or risky. I hoped that everything I achieved would serve as a reflection of my worth. However, it took many years before I truly felt content. I did find a wonderful partner, but he was still evolving. I also built a career that was fulfilling, but it was far from easy. So, what changed? I transformed my mindset. This shift happened due to the work I was doing at the time. One day, my doctoral student, Mary Bandura, and I were exploring why some students seemed obsessed with proving their intelligence while others were more focused on learning and improving. That's when we had an epiphany. There were actually two distinct ways people view their abilities. One was a fixed belief in ability, where intelligence or talent are seen as inherent and unchangeable, and the other was a belief in growth, where abilities can be developed through effort and learning. This insight led to the concept of mindsets. I realized that I had been operating with a fixed mindset all along. This mindset made me anxious about making mistakes and fearing failure. But once I understood the difference between the two mindsets, I realized I had the power to choose. Mindsets are not set in stone, they are just beliefs, and you can change them at any time. Fixed versus growth mindsets, the choice. When you adopt a fixed mindset, you enter a world where success is about proving you're smart or talented. It's about validating your worth. On the other hand, when you adopt a growth mindset, success is about pushing yourself to learn new things and improve over time. In the fixed mindset world, failure signifies a lack of ability, while in the growth mindset, failure is simply a part of the learning process. It's about growth and not giving up. In the fixed mindset world, effort is seen as a sign of inadequacy. If you were truly talented, you wouldn't need to try so hard. But in the growth mindset world, effort is what makes you better. It's the key to becoming smarter or more skilled. The good news is that you have a choice. Mindsets are powerful, but they are ultimately just beliefs, and you can decide to shift your mindset. Success, is it about proving you're smart or learning? Benjamin Barber, a renowned political theorist, once shared a profound idea: I don't divide the world into the weak and the strong, or the successes and the failures. I divide the world into the learners and non-learners. Every person is born with an innate desire to learn. From infancy, we're driven to master new, challenging skills. Babies don't hesitate to fall while learning to walk or stumble while trying to speak. They simply keep going. They don't fear mistakes, they embrace them as part of the process. However, a fixed mindset can dampen this natural curiosity. As children start to evaluate their own abilities, some develop a fear of failure, a fear of not being seen as smart. Over time, many children with a fixed mindset start avoiding challenges because they are afraid of looking incompetent. We once conducted an experiment with 4-year-olds, giving them a choice between an easy puzzle and a more difficult one. Children with a fixed mindset preferred to stick with the easy puzzle, avoiding mistakes. Meanwhile, children with a growth mindset were excited by the challenge of the harder puzzle, eager to learn and improve. The fixed mindset believes that intelligence is something you either have or don't, whereas the growth mindset sees intelligence as something that can be developed over time. As one 7th-grade girl with a growth mindset put it, I think intelligence is something you have to work for. It isn't just given to you. For her, making mistakes wasn't something to fear, it was an opportunity to grow. The consequences of fixed versus growth mindsets. We also explored how mindsets can affect decision-making, particularly in situations that are crucial for one's future. At the University of Hong Kong, we noticed that students who were not fluent in English had an opportunity to take a course designed to improve their language skills. Those with a growth mindset eagerly seized the opportunity, understanding the importance of learning and growth. On the other hand, students with a fixed mindset were reluctant to expose their weaknesses and chose not to take the course, preferring to avoid situations where their intelligence could be challenged. This experiment demonstrated how the fixed mindset can prevent people from learning and growing. By avoiding challenges to protect their self-image, they miss out on valuable opportunities for improvement. The brain's response to feedback. We even observed how different mindsets affect the brain's response to feedback. Students with a fixed mindset only paid attention to feedback that told them whether they were right or wrong, focusing on validating their intelligence. But when presented with information that could help them learn, they showed little interest. In contrast, students with a growth mindset paid close attention to all feedback, using it as a tool for improvement. What's your priority? Validation or challenge? When it comes to relationships, mindsets also play a significant role. People with a fixed mindset tend to want a partner who will worship them, someone who will constantly affirm their self-worth. On the other hand, people with a growth mindset want a partner who will help them grow, someone who will challenge them to become a better person. They don't expect perfection. They understand that both people in the relationship have room to grow. The CEO mindset, stuck in a fixed mindset. In the corporate world, this same pattern plays out. Many CEOs face a choice between creating a world where they are seen as perfect or confronting their shortcomings and working toward improvement. The first option often leads to stagnation and failure, while the second leads to growth and long-term success. For example, Lee Iacocca, after initial success, failed to innovate at Chrysler, preferring to maintain the status quo. Meanwhile, Lou Gerstner took on the challenge of turning around IBM, even when it was unpopular with Wall Street. His long-term efforts eventually led to IBM becoming a leader in its field once again. Embracing challenges and growing. People with a growth mindset thrive on challenges. They embrace the opportunity to stretch themselves and improve. Mia Hamm, for instance, constantly challenged herself by playing with older, more skilled players, and as a result, she became one of the greatest female soccer players of all time. Similarly, Patricia Miranda faced numerous challenges in her pursuit of wrestling, including ridicule and physical setbacks. Yet, her determination to keep pushing herself eventually led her to an Olympic medal and a spot at Yale Law School. For her, the challenge was always more exciting than the idea of staying in a comfortable place. The power of growth. Sometimes, people with a growth mindset stretch themselves so far that they achieve what seems impossible. Christopher Reeve, the actor known for playing Superman, was paralyzed after a tragic accident. Despite the grim prognosis, he embarked on an intensive exercise program to try to regain movement. After years of effort, he regained some movement in his body and even changed the way the medical community views spinal cord recovery. Fixed mindset. Thriving in the comfortable zone. On the other hand, people with a fixed mindset tend to avoid challenges. They seek success within a realm where they are comfortable, avoiding anything that might risk their image of being smart or talented. In academic settings, for example, students with a fixed mindset often lose interest in subjects as soon as they encounter difficulty, while those with a growth mindset remain determined even when faced with challenging material. In summary, mindsets determine not only how we approach challenges but also how we view our potential for growth. People with a growth mindset thrive on learning, stretch themselves to reach new heights, and are more willing to embrace difficulties as opportunities for growth. When do you feel intelligent? Is it when you're perfect or when you're learning? The plot thickens as the fixed mindset believes success isn't enough. It's not just about appearing smart or talented, it's about being flawless and achieving that perfection immediately. When we surveyed a wide range of people, from elementary school students to young adults, asking them, "When do you feel smart?" the answers revealed significant differences between the fixed and growth mindsets. Those with the fixed mindset shared, "It's when I don't make any mistakes. When I finish something quickly and it's perfect. When something is easy for me but others can't do it." For them, intelligence was all about being perfect right away. On the other hand, those with the growth mindset said, "When it's really challenging and I put in a lot of effort and I can do something I couldn't do before. When I work on something for a long time and start to understand it." For growth-minded individuals, intelligence isn't about instant perfection. It's about the process of learning, overcoming challenges, and improving over time. Why do people with fixed mindset expect instant ability? Those with a fixed mindset believe that talent or ability should be present before any learning takes place. They expect their skills to show up immediately. This idea is especially clear when you look at graduate students. For instance, at Columbia, a select group of students is admitted based on their academic achievements. However, some of these students, despite their high test scores and impeccable recommendations, immediately felt like frauds. They compared themselves to faculty members with years of experience and publications, or to fellow students already publishing papers and writing grant proposals. They forgot one important word, yet. These students had been admitted to learn and grow not because they already knew everything. This mindset led some to follow extreme paths. Take Janet Cook and Stephen Glass, for example. Both were successful young journalists who falsified stories to maintain the illusion of perfection. They felt pressure to be perfect right away, leading them to compromise their integrity. The danger of defining yourself by a test score. In the fixed mindset, one test or evaluation can define a person's intelligence forever. A prime example is Loretta, who immigrated to the U.S. at 5. After taking a test, she ended up in a lower-level class, but eventually transferred to an elite group, excelling academically. Despite this, she never felt like she truly belonged, as she had internalized that initial test score as a permanent measure of her ability. This belief is common. When we tested 5th graders by showing them a box containing a test, we asked if they thought it measured how smart they were or how smart they'd become. Those with a growth mindset didn't think it defined their intelligence. However, those with a fixed mindset believed that a single test could define their intelligence now and forever. Can potential be measured right now? The fixed mindset believes that potential can be known immediately through tests or expert opinions. This view has led to many misjudgments of people's capabilities. For example, Joseph P. Kennedy once confidently told Morton Downey Jr. that he'd never succeed due to his unconventional fashion choices. But many successful figures like Jackson Pollock, Lucille Ball, and even Elvis Presley were once considered unlikely to succeed. So, what really is potential? Is it simply about a snapshot of abilities at one moment, or is it about growth, learning, and persistence over time? People with a growth mindset recognize that potential isn't fixed and it takes time, effort, and guidance to develop. For instance, early paintings by Paul Cézanne, a revered artist, were considered subpar, yet over time he became a trailblazer of modern art. This exemplifies the idea that potential isn't immediately visible, it grows with effort and time. How do we assess potential? Many teachers and educators still fall into the trap of measuring a student's potential based solely on one test or performance. But as educator Michael D. Reardon pointed out, such evaluations are flawed. A single test can't provide a full picture of a student's ability or growth potential. Real success and potential emerge over time through consistent effort and improvement, not from one-off evaluations. NASA, for instance, didn't focus on selecting astronauts who were immediately successful, but rather those who had faced significant challenges and bounced back from failure. Similarly, business leaders like Jack Welch and ballet instructors like Marina Semyonova selected people based on their capacity for growth, not just their achievements. These examples demonstrate the value of the growth mindset over the fixed one. Seeking to prove you're special. When individuals with a fixed mindset achieve success, they may feel a deep sense of superiority, believing their inherent talent makes them better than others. This desire to be recognized as special is often rooted in insecurity. I too once felt the need to prove I was more talented or worthy than others. For example, I once relished moments where I felt special, like getting into a taxi during a freezing night after an opera where I felt I stood out in a crowd. However, this need for validation can be toxic. A product I once encountered, the I Love Me mirror, exemplifies the self-esteem movement where people are encouraged to affirm their specialness, often at the expense of others. Special, superior, and entitled, the pitfalls of the fixed mindset. Take John McEnroe, the famous tennis player with a fixed mindset. Despite his immense talent, McEnroe's career was often marred by an inability to embrace learning and improvement, leading to moments of outbursts and dissatisfaction. He viewed success as a measure of his superiority over others. On the other hand, Michael Jordan, though widely praised for his skills, consistently acknowledged the hard work and growth that led to his success, never allowing himself to view his accomplishments as proof of being inherently superior. In the fixed mindset, success is tied to being better than others. But when failure occurs, individuals with this mindset often feel like they've lost their value and identity. This shows the dangerous link between self-worth and success or failure. Redefining failure in the growth mindset. Failure in the fixed mindset is viewed not as an action, i.e., I failed, but as an identity, I am a failure. For instance, a child named Robert who didn't get into the best preschool in New York was deemed a failure by his parents, even at such a young age. This mindset can also affect adults. For example, Ernie Els, a professional golfer, feared being seen as a failure after several years of losing. This mentality creates an unnecessary pressure to be perfect, where failure can feel like a personal attack. The growth mindset, on the other hand, views failure as a natural part of the learning process, allowing individuals to grow without their self-worth being tied to any single success or failure. By shifting our mindset from one of fixed traits to one of growth, we can not only embrace learning and effort but also redefine what it means to truly be successful. Defining moments and the power of mindset. Failure, even with a growth mindset, can still be tough to face. It can sting, it can hurt, but it doesn't define who we are. Failure is just a problem, something that needs to be dealt with, learned from, and moved past. Take Jim Marshall, for example. He was a defensive player for the Minnesota Vikings. There's one moment in his career that many people still talk about, and it could have easily defined him as a failure. In a game against the San Francisco 49ers, Marshall picked up a loose football and ran it into the end zone, but there was just one problem: he ran the wrong way. He scored a touchdown for the other team. And to make matters worse, it was all broadcast on national TV. In that moment, Marshall felt devastated. The shame of making such a huge mistake was almost unbearable. But instead of letting that moment crush him, he chose to make it right. During halftime, he had a choice: stay in his misery or do something to change his mindset. He chose to push forward, took control of the situation, and played some of his best football ever. His team went on to win the game. Marshall didn't stop there. He started speaking to others, sharing his story, and offering encouragement to those who had their own embarrassing moments. He used that failure as a tool to improve both on and off the field. In contrast, the fixed mindset doesn't offer that same growth. Take the tragic story of Bernard Loiseau, a Michelin 3-star chef. Loiseau was a pioneer in French cooking and one of the top chefs in the world. But in 2003, a slight dip in his rating in the Gault Millau Guide sent him into a downward spiral. Rumors about potentially losing one of his 3 Michelin stars seemed unbearable to him, and tragically, he took his own life. Loiseau had a remarkable career and could have continued to thrive, but the fixed mindset labeled him as a failure because of that minor setback. This contrast is clear. In the fixed mindset, failure isn't just an event, it becomes an identity. It's permanent. People in the growth mindset, however, use failure as a stepping stone to learn, grow, and become better. When success feels like a threat. Sometimes success can even feel like a threat. My husband and I once went to a dude ranch, and as part of the experience, we decided to try fly fishing. Neither of us had any experience with it, and despite a lot of confusion, I ended up catching a fish. My husband was incredibly proud, but to my surprise, some of the other men around us reacted differently. They were concerned about how my success might make him feel, as if his pride in my accomplishment could somehow diminish their own sense of self-worth. In their eyes, my success was his failure. This mindset, where the success of others feels like a loss for you, can also lead to a negative spiral. If we're always comparing ourselves to others and seeing their success as a threat, we are unlikely to use those moments as motivation to improve ourselves. The danger of the fixed mindset. In the fixed mindset, there's a toxic tendency to avoid effort and to try to protect one's self-esteem at all costs. This can show up in academic settings, as seen in a study with 7th graders. When these students faced failure, those with a fixed mindset responded by either giving up or cheating to avoid further failure. They believed that if they didn't have the natural ability, there was no point in putting in more effort. Even worse, instead of learning from their mistakes, students with a fixed mindset looked for ways to feel better about themselves by comparing themselves to others who had done worse. Instead of owning their setbacks, they blamed external factors or other people, just like tennis star John McEnroe, who often blamed his losses on everything except his own performance. In the corporate world, the fixed mindset can lead to similar outcomes. When Procter & Gamble outperformed Scott Paper, the latter just gave up instead of fighting back. The growth mindset, however, involves taking ownership, learning from mistakes, and striving to improve. Even leaders like Jack Welch, who oversaw General Electric, demonstrated this by admitting failures and taking personal responsibility when things went wrong. Fixed mindset and mental health. Interestingly, mindset also plays a huge role in mental health, especially depression. A study found that students with a fixed mindset experienced higher levels of depression, especially during stressful times like winter. This mindset kept them stuck in a cycle of negative thoughts where they believed their setbacks were a sign of personal inadequacy. Instead of taking action to improve their situation, they ruminated on their failures and let everything slide. On the other hand, students with a growth mindset, even when feeling down, took proactive steps. They kept up with their studies, continued to take care of themselves, and worked through their problems. They believed that, even if they were struggling, they had the ability to get better. And that mindset motivated them to push through even in tough times. This shows how mindset affects not just performance but well-being. Those with a fixed mindset feel trapped by their failures, while those with a growth mindset see setbacks as opportunities for growth. Effort and success, a growth mindset perspective. Many of us are raised to admire natural talent. We're told stories like The Tortoise and the Hare where effort is portrayed as something only for those who aren't naturally gifted. In the fixed mindset, effort can seem like an admission that you lack natural ability. We admire people who seem to succeed effortlessly, whether it's in sports, art, or business. This belief, where talent trumps effort, often leads people to avoid challenges or to give up when things get hard. However, people with a growth mindset view effort as an essential part of success. They understand that even those with natural talent still have to work hard to improve and achieve greatness. They don't see effort as something shameful, but rather as the key to unlocking their potential. I once had an experience that illustrates this. As a young professor, I noticed my colleagues working late into the night. Instead of thinking they're putting in extra effort to succeed, I thought they must not be as smart as I am. This mindset blinded me to the truth: effort is a key ingredient in success. It wasn't about how naturally smart someone was, it was about how much effort they were willing to put in. The story of Seabiscuit and the power of growth mindset. Seabiscuit was a horse that was considered beyond saving, so much so that the option of putting him down seemed inevitable. His story was not just about the horse, but about a team of people: the jockey, the owner, and the trainer, who were all broken in their own ways. Despite their hardships, they united to push against all odds and achieve greatness. Seabiscuit, with his raw determination, became a symbol of resilience, a beacon for a nation facing difficult times, reminding them that even when everything seems against you, perseverance can turn the impossible into a reality. Laura Hillenbrand, the author of Seabiscuit, found inspiration in this story. In her college years, she was struck down by chronic fatigue syndrome, which made it hard for her to function normally. Yet, despite her struggles, she found the strength to write this beautiful narrative of perseverance. Through the story of Seabiscuit's rise, she also shared her own journey of overcoming adversity, demonstrating the power of sheer will to both transform and transcend limitations. This story is a testament to the transformative power of effort, the ability to change yourself and your circumstances through hard work and determination. When viewed through the lens of a growth mindset, this becomes a story of potential and personal growth. But seen through a fixed mindset, it simply shows a group of people, each with flaws, who struggle to push through. The fear of effort, a key to understanding the fixed mindset. For those who hold a fixed mindset, effort is often seen as something only necessary for those with deficiencies. In contrast, those with natural talent, whether in sports, music, or academics, may fear that putting in effort will expose their weaknesses or diminish their perceived ability. If someone is considered naturally gifted, the fear is that trying too hard might reveal them as less talented than believed. Take Nadia Salerno-Sonnenberg, for example. As a child prodigy in violin, she debuted with the Philadelphia Orchestra at the age of 10. But when she arrived at Juilliard, she struggled with many bad habits, including improper fingerings and an awkward grip on the violin. Despite this, she resisted making necessary changes for years. Over time, she watched as her peers improved, eventually surpassing her, which led to a crisis of confidence. She admits that the fear of effort stemmed from the idea that if she gave it her all and still failed, there would be no excuses left. If she tried and failed, it would mean that her natural talent wasn't enough. She had internalized the belief that effortless success was the only kind worth having, and the idea of working hard was too terrifying to face. It wasn't until her teacher, Dorothy DeLay, intervened, giving her an ultimatum to either try or leave, that Nadia began to confront her fears. In embracing the challenge and putting in the effort, she not only overcame her personal hurdles but also went on to win major competitions. As she later reflected, she realized that, especially in music, you have to work hardest for the things you love most. And if you love something, you're ready to face the hardest challenges for it. The perils of low effort, the regret of wasted potential. In contrast to the fear of effort, the growth mindset sees it as almost unthinkable to desire something deeply and then not put forth any effort to achieve it. The regret of potential left untapped is often more painful than the risk of failure. Clare Boothe Luce, a prominent figure in American history, represents this well. A renowned author, playwright, and political figure, she achieved great success in many areas. However, her personal passion was writing for the theater, something she sacrificed in favor of her political career. Despite her success, she later reflected that she had missed out on pursuing her true calling. She even admitted that if she were to write an autobiography, she would title it The Autobiography of a Failure. Her experience emphasizes a crucial point. Sometimes the fear of failure or the expectation of greatness can prevent us from trying at all. The idea of looking back and saying I could have been something great can be far more painful than trying and failing. The Groundhog Day of the fixed mindset, the cycle of proving yourself. One of the most compelling illustrations of the fixed mindset comes from the movie Groundhog Day, where Bill Murray's character, Phil Connors, is forced to relive the same day over and over. Initially, Phil uses his knowledge of the day to prove his superiority and manipulates situations, but over time he realizes this pursuit leads nowhere. Despite having all the tools to win the day again and again, he finds that his life is empty. It's only when Phil adopts a growth mindset, using the time to learn new skills, care for others, and better himself, that he breaks free of the cycle. In this way, Groundhog Day serves as a powerful metaphor for the dangers of living in the fixed mindset, an endless cycle of trying to prove yourself without ever truly growing. Changing your mindset, the power of growth. While some people might believe their mindsets are set in stone, the truth is that mindsets are changeable. Simply becoming aware of the two mindsets, fixed and growth, can help individuals make shifts in how they think and respond. People often realize when they're slipping into a fixed mindset, whether it's avoiding learning opportunities, feeling discouraged by failure, or shying away from challenges that require effort. With time, many individuals learn to make conscious shifts toward a growth mindset, embracing challenges and seeing failure as an opportunity for learning. Changing one's mindset doesn't happen instantly, but it's certainly possible. By adopting a growth mindset, people can better navigate their lives, understanding that setbacks are simply a part of the process, not the end. Effort and success, a complex relationship. It's also important to remember that effort alone doesn't guarantee success. Resources, opportunities, and external factors often play a significant role. For example, people with financial security or access to education may be able to take more risks and invest in their development without the same fears of failure that others face. Those without these resources may face more significant barriers even if they work just as hard. However, that doesn't negate the importance of effort. Effort, even when it doesn't lead to immediate success, is often the key to long-term fulfillment. Many people, especially those with a growth mindset, find meaning in the process of working toward a goal rather than just the outcome. The growth mindset, about more than just success. It's also essential to understand that the growth mindset isn't about being the best or surpassing others. It's about personal growth, learning, and the pursuit of meaningful goals. Success in a growth mindset doesn't necessarily mean achieving the top of the hierarchy. It means becoming the best version of yourself through continuous effort and learning. For example, a lawyer who spent years fighting for justice for others may not have won his case, but the effort and learning involved in that journey were deeply meaningful. The growth mindset allows people to value the process itself and find fulfillment in the pursuit regardless of the outcome. Understanding mindsets, fixed versus growth mindsets. In the world of success and achievement, it's common to encounter individuals who are on a fast track, always working hard and taking on challenges, yet still exhibit signs of a fixed mindset. You might wonder how this aligns with the idea that people with a fixed mindset tend to avoid difficult tasks and prefer low-effort activities. The fixed mindset explained. Generally speaking, those with a fixed mindset favor effortless success because it helps them prove their natural talents. However, you're right in noticing that some highly driven individuals, like top executives or ambitious entrepreneurs, may exhibit a fixed mindset despite their willingness to work hard. These people are often driven by the desire for validation. They want to achieve extraordinary feats like winning prestigious awards or amassing wealth. But beneath the surface, their mindset is still fixed. They may constantly seek validation, view their talents as something that makes them superior to others, and become intolerant of mistakes or setbacks. Interestingly, people with a growth mindset might also pursue similar goals, like striving for a Nobel Prize or achieving financial success. However, for those with a growth mindset, it's not about proving their worth or showing they are better than others, but rather about continually growing and improving through the journey. Should you stick with the fixed mindset? You might be asking, what if I like having a fixed mindset? If you feel comfortable with it, there's no immediate need to change. This book shows you that you have a choice between two mindsets and the worlds they create. The fixed mindset offers the comfort of certainty. You know what your abilities are, where you stand, and what to expect. This stability can be reassuring since it offers clear boundaries for success and failure. However, it's important to consider the limitations of this mindset. It could prevent you from seeing your potential in areas where you may not initially excel. It can also lead you to believe that talent alone will guarantee success, making it harder to persevere through challenges. The growth mindset, on the other hand, suggests that you can always improve your abilities with effort, but it doesn't force you to pursue change. It simply opens the door for growth when you're ready. Is everything about you changeable? The growth mindset emphasizes the idea that abilities can be cultivated, but it doesn't claim that every single aspect of a person's character can or should change. For instance, preferences or values might not be easily alterable, as demonstrated in a personal story I had with a taxi driver. Despite years of trying to love opera, a passion his father had, he simply couldn't. The growth mindset doesn't mean you must change every part of yourself, but it encourages you to embrace growth in areas that are valuable to you. The fixed mindset, in contrast, tends to be a barrier to change. It locks people into certain beliefs about their abilities, preventing them from seeing new possibilities. The growth mindset opens up avenues for self-improvement, but ultimately it's up to you to decide where that growth is most meaningful. Confidence, fixed versus growth mindset. Some might think that people with a fixed mindset are simply lacking confidence. While it's true that confidence can be affected by setbacks, people with fixed mindsets often start with just as much confidence as those with growth mindsets. The difference, however, is that their confidence is fragile and easily undermined by challenges. Studies have shown that people with a growth mindset tend to gain confidence as they face difficulties, learning and growing from them. For example, a study involving employees taking a computer training course showed that those with a growth mindset grew in confidence as they made mistakes and learned from them. On the other hand, those with a fixed mindset saw their confidence erode when faced with difficulties. A real-life example can be seen with Michelle Wee, a young golfer who entered a prestigious tournament against seasoned professionals. Despite not winning, she wasn't focused on her confidence. Instead, she wanted to experience the learning process and improve. Her mindset allowed her to walk away feeling empowered rather than discouraged. The power of the growth mindset. One of the most remarkable things about the growth mindset is that you don't need to be confident to dive into something new. You don't have to feel like you're already good at something to enjoy the process or to start doing it. The journey of growth itself becomes rewarding. Even in writing this book, I faced challenges that pushed me out of my comfort zone. It wasn't easy, but the effort brought joy. It's an example of how a growth mindset makes challenges feel like opportunities rather than obstacles. Practical tips for cultivating a growth mindset. Here are a few practical tips for adopting a growth mindset in your life. 1. Push through challenges. Think about a time when you were enjoying something like a puzzle or a new activity and then it became difficult. Instead of backing out, try shifting into a growth mindset. Visualize your brain creating new connections as you persevere through the difficulty. This will help you stay motivated. 2. Seek constructive feedback. In your personal and professional life, avoid surrounding yourself with people who only praise you. Instead, look for those who can provide constructive criticism, as this will help you grow. 3. Reframe your past experiences. If you've faced setbacks in the past, such as a bad grade, a job rejection, or a failure, don't let these experiences define you. Instead, ask yourself, what lessons can I take from this? How can I use this experience to fuel my growth? 4. Transform negative emotions into motivation. When you feel low or discouraged, don't let it lead to inaction. Use that as an opportunity to focus on learning, facing challenges, and putting in the effort to improve. 5. Try something new. Is there something you've always wanted to do but were afraid to try? Stop worrying about not being good enough. Take the leap and create a plan to tackle it with a growth mindset. Chapter 3. The real truth about talent and achievement. Imagine Thomas Edison in your mind. Picture where he is and what he's doing. Is he working alone? When I've asked people this, they typically describe him like this. He's in his workshop, surrounded by equipment, working on the phonograph, experimenting. He succeeds on his own. Is he alone? Yes, he's alone because he's the only one who knows exactly what he's trying to do. He's in New Jersey, standing in a lab, wearing a white coat, focused on a light bulb. Suddenly it works. Is he alone? Yes, Edison is known to be reclusive and prefers to work alone. However, the reality of Edison's process was quite different. Edison wasn't a loner. When he invented the light bulb, he had a team of 30 assistants, including well-trained scientists. They worked in a high-tech laboratory funded by his company. The light bulb wasn't the result of a sudden eureka moment, but a series of inventions that required collaboration among chemists, engineers, mathematicians, and glassblowers. Edison was an entrepreneur who understood the commercial value of his inventions. He also knew how to use the media to his advantage, sometimes securing his name as the inventor of various technologies even when others were equally involved. While he was undeniably a genius, Edison didn't start out as one. His biographer, Paul Israel, has noted that Edison grew up like any other young boy of his time, interested in tinkering and experiments. What set him apart wasn't just his mechanical knowledge, it was his relentless drive and mindset. Unlike most, Edison never stopped seeking new challenges. Even after other young men settled into their adult roles, he was still riding trains from city to city, learning all he could about telegraphy and working his way up in the field. His obsession with invention and self-improvement lasted well into his adult life, much to the disappointment of his wives as he remained primarily consumed by his work. This chapter is about the real factors that contribute to success. It aims to explore why some people achieve more than others and why some individuals fall short of expectations. Mindset and school performance. Let's bring it down from the level of Mozart and Darwin and look at something more relatable: how mindsets shape achievement in everyday life. It's often more impactful to see a student's growth under a growth mindset than to read about the great minds of history. This is because the lessons about mindset are applicable to all of us and to our children as well. In a study, we measured students' mindsets as they transitioned into junior high school. Did they believe their intelligence was fixed, or did they think it could be developed? We followed these students for the next 2 years to see how they fared. The transition to junior high is a challenging period for many. The work becomes harder, grading policies become stricter, and the teaching style becomes less personalized. On top of this, students are adjusting to their new adolescent roles. As a result, many students' grades suffer, but not all students' grades fall equally. In our study, we saw that only students with a fixed mindset experienced a decline in grades. Students with a growth mindset actually showed improvement over the 2 years. When the students entered junior high, their records were indistinguishable. They had earned the same grades and scores on achievement tests in elementary school. But once they faced the increased challenges of junior high, the students with a fixed mindset began to struggle. The students with the fixed mindset explained their poor grades in ways that reflected their belief in their own inadequacy. They called themselves stupid or claimed they sucked at certain subjects. Some even blamed the teachers, using crude language to describe them. These responses didn't help them develop a plan for future success. On the other hand, students with the growth mindset approached the situation differently. When faced with difficulties, they doubled down on their efforts and sought ways to improve. They were like George Danzig, a graduate student in math who accidentally copied 2 unsolved famous math problems from the board. Rather than give up, he worked tirelessly for several days and solved them. The low-effort syndrome. The students with a fixed mindset saw the challenges they faced as a threat. The threat was not just the difficulty of the work, it was the fear of revealing their weaknesses. Adolescence becomes a series of tests, each one asking, am I smart or dumb? Am I good-looking or ugly? Am I cool or nerdy? For those with the fixed mindset, failure in any of these areas is permanent. As a result, many students with the fixed mindset stop trying altogether. They sought to protect their egos by avoiding effort. This is where the low-effort syndrome comes into play. Some of the brightest students, like Nadia Salerno-Sonnenberg, might stop working entirely because they believe effort will expose their weaknesses. John Holt, an educator, describes how some students disconnect their intelligence from their schooling experience. One of the worst students he encountered outside of school was a mature, intelligent person, but in the classroom his potential was not realized. In contrast, students with a growth mindset don't see a challenge as a threat. For them, adolescence is a time of exploration, learning new things, discovering their passions, and figuring out their future goals. When we taught junior high students the growth mindset, it had a dramatic impact on their effort. One student named Jimmy, who had been disengaged and low effort, suddenly began working hard after realizing that effort could make him smarter. He started staying up late to complete homework, handed in assignments early, and eagerly sought feedback to improve his work. Finding your potential. A close friend of mine recalled a story about his second-grade teacher, Mrs. Beer. She had the students draw paper horses and hang them above the blackboard. She explained that your horse is only as fast as your brain. Every time you learn something, your horse moves ahead. At first, my friend wasn't convinced. His father often told him he lacked brains, so he wasn't sure he could ever catch up to the class geniuses. But with time, as he practiced and improved his skills, his horse started moving forward, overtaking others in the race. By the end of the school year, he had won the race by a nose. This isn't about learning being a race, but about how this simple metaphor helped my friend realize his own potential and connect his brain to his learning. The college transition. The transition to college presents a similar challenge. High school valedictorians often find themselves suddenly surrounded by other top students, leading to anxiety and feelings of inadequacy. This is especially true in competitive fields like pre-med programs. In one of our studies, we followed students taking their first college chemistry course, which was critical for their entry into pre-med. At the start of the semester, we measured their mindsets and tracked their progress through the course. Once again, students with the growth mindset performed better. Even when they struggled on a test, they bounced back. The students with a fixed mindset, on the other hand, didn't recover after poor performance. What's the difference in their study strategies? Students with a fixed mindset read their textbooks and notes repeatedly, trying to memorize everything. When they didn't perform well, they concluded that chemistry just wasn't their subject. In contrast, students with a growth mindset took a proactive approach to learning. They looked for underlying patterns, reviewed their mistakes, and stayed motivated even when the material got tough. This is why they got higher grades, not because they were smarter, but because they focused on learning rather than simply passing tests. One of my students shared her experience after learning the growth mindset. Before, she would just reread her notes when faced with difficult material. After applying the growth mindset, she became more engaged and used more effective study strategies, resulting in a much better performance in her exams. In the end, it's not about natural talent but the mindset that shapes our approach to learning and success. Students with a growth mindset take ownership of their learning, continuously improving and adapting their strategies. Are all people created equal? Can anyone achieve greatness with the right mindset? Let's dive into this. Starting with the question, are all children born equal? The answer is no. Children are unique in their abilities and interests. Ellen Winner, in her book Gifted Children, gives vivid examples of prodigies, young children who display extraordinary abilities at an early age. These are kids with heightened skills, intense passions, and an unwavering commitment to pursuing these interests, often leading them to remarkable accomplishments. Take Michael, for instance. He was a child prodigy who was fascinated by numbers and letters. At a mere 4 months old, he was speaking in full sentences, astonishing his parents and others around him. By 3 years old, he was doing algebra, discovering and proving his own mathematical rules. Michael's story is not just about natural ability. What stands out most is his relentless love of learning and tackling challenges. This burning curiosity and passion for exploration were just as crucial to his success as any innate talent. Is it talent, or is it all about mindset? We often wonder whether figures like Mozart were great because of their innate musical talent or because they worked tirelessly at their craft. Did Darwin have special abilities, or was his success due to his consistent collection of specimens and insatiable curiosity about the world? In the end, it's clear that while natural talent may give a head start, it's the drive and determination to continually learn and face challenges that truly shapes remarkable achievements. Can anyone succeed with the right mindset? Now let's consider the broader question, can everyone achieve great things with the right mindset? Could you, for example, walk into a struggling high school and teach a class of underperforming students college-level calculus? If you did, it would prove one thing: with the right attitude and approach, people can accomplish far more than we often give them credit for. Take the example of Garfield High School in Los Angeles, which was known for its poor performance. Many of the students had lost interest in learning, and the teachers were burned out. But one teacher, Jamie Escalante, didn't let the school's reputation deter him. With his growth mindset, he didn't ask if he could teach them, but how he could teach them. His determination led him to teach calculus to students who had been written off by many. As a result, these students went on to outperform some of the top schools in the country, proving that with the right mindset and support, even the most underprivileged students can succeed at the highest levels. Another inspiring example is Marva Collins, who took over a class of students in Chicago, many of whom were labeled as learning disabled or emotionally disturbed. Instead of dumbing down the material, she treated them as if they were all capable of greatness. By the end of the year, these same students were reading works by Aristotle, Shakespeare, and Tolstoy. Collins showed that with the right mindset, even those deemed behind could accomplish extraordinary things. Educational researcher Benjamin Bloom studied the paths of successful individuals, Olympic athletes, world-class musicians, and top scientists. He found that these high achievers often didn't show early signs of exceptional talent. What set them apart was their relentless dedication to their craft, their ongoing motivation, and the support systems they had around them. Bloom concluded that anyone, given the right conditions and mindset, could reach high levels of success, except for a very small percentage with severe impairments or extraordinary natural ability. The issue of ability levels and tracking. You might be thinking, but aren't students grouped by their ability levels for a reason? Don't their test scores determine what they can achieve? It's important to remember that test scores tell you where a student currently stands. They don't predict where they could end up with the right teaching and effort. Research by Focko Reinberg in Germany found that teachers who operated with a fixed mindset, believing that students' abilities were set in stone, had little impact on their students' progress. On the other hand, teachers with a growth mindset believed that all students could improve and they found ways to help their students succeed. As a result, students who were initially in the lowest groups showed incredible progress, proving that the mindset and approach of the teacher play a crucial role in student success. Marva Collins, for example, approached each student with a belief in their potential. She didn't let Freddie, a student who was far behind, sit idly in class. Instead, she told him, "We have work to do. You can't just sit there and expect to get smart. I promise you're going to do well. I won't let you fail." The impact of mindset on achievement. The growth mindset is about believing in the ability to improve and develop through hard work and learning. The fixed mindset, on the other hand, holds people back by making them believe that their abilities are inherent and unchangeable. The former leads to better outcomes in education and achievement as it motivates individuals to persist, develop better strategies, and seek help when needed. Artistic ability, a gift or developed skill. Finally, let's talk about artistic ability. Many people believe that artistic talent is something you're born with, something that can't be developed. I used to think this too. I would see friends draw effortlessly while my own attempts were clumsy and frustrating. I believed that I simply wasn't gifted in that area. But then I came across the book Drawing on the Right Side of the Brain by Betty Edwards, and I was amazed by the transformation of students who had no prior drawing skills. In just a few days, they went from drawing primitive sketches to creating impressive works of art. Their abilities had developed not because they were born with an artistic gift, but because they applied the right techniques and mindset to improve. This showed me that with the proper guidance and effort, almost anyone can develop skills in areas they once thought were out of reach. Unlocking your potential, the power of the growth mindset. Many people mistakenly believe that drawing, or any creative skill for that matter, is a mystical talent possessed by only a few. This belief often leads to the misconception that only a select group of individuals can master these skills while others simply can't. The reality is that drawing, like other skills, is not about natural talent, it's about learning to see the world differently. According to experts, what we often call drawing skills are actually seeing skills. These include the ability to perceive edges, spaces, relationships, light and shadows, and the overall composition. Once we learn each of these components and learn to combine them, drawing becomes a process, not a magical gift. Some individuals may pick up these skills effortlessly in the course of their lives, while others might have to work harder to develop them. But the good news is, as demonstrated by before and after self-portraits, everyone can improve and achieve no matter where they start. Just because someone appears to have a natural talent, it doesn't mean others cannot reach similar or even greater levels of mastery with practice and dedication. This is an important point, especially for those who believe in the fixed mindset that one's abilities are set in stone. Early performance is often viewed as an indicator of future success, but that's not necessarily true. Let's look at Jackson Pollock, for instance. The story of Jackson Pollock. Jackson Pollock's journey as an artist is a perfect example of how talent can be developed with dedication. While experts agree that Pollock didn't have innate artistic genius, he is now celebrated as one of the most influential American painters of the 20th century, revolutionizing modern art. Pollock didn't arrive at greatness overnight. His passion for art and relentless commitment to it allowed him to grow and improve, and through continuous effort, he created his famous drip paintings. These unique works were a powerful expression of his unconscious mind and his inner feelings. Twyla Tharp, a renowned choreographer and dancer, emphasizes in her book The Creative Habit that creativity is not a stroke of sudden inspiration but the result of persistent effort. She even dismisses the idea of natural geniuses as portrayed in films like Amadeus. Even Mozart, often depicted as effortlessly composing masterpieces, worked hard to hone his craft. It was through dedication, not talent alone, that Pollock achieved greatness. The dangers of praising ability over effort. Given that people can grow and develop new skills, how can we foster confidence in their potential? The natural instinct for many is to praise their inherent ability, believing that acknowledging someone's talent will inspire them. However, studies show that this can backfire. Research has revealed that when students are praised for their innate ability, it can actually push them into a fixed mindset. Instead of seeing challenges as opportunities to learn, they begin to avoid tasks that might expose their weaknesses, fearing it will undermine their talent. Take a study with middle school students, for example. When some students were praised for their ability, "Wow, you're really smart," they became more concerned about maintaining their smart label. When faced with a challenging task, they rejected it because they didn't want to risk failing and being seen as less intelligent. On the other hand, students praised for their effort, "You worked really hard." Embraced challenges. They viewed difficulties as chances to learn and grow, not as threats to their self-worth. As a result, the effort-praised students performed better in the long run. This dynamic mirrors the experiences of Adam Guettel, a musical theater composer who struggled with the pressure of living up to the genius label placed on him. Despite his musical talent, he suffered from self-doubt, obsessive-compulsive behaviors, and drug issues. The burden of constantly needing to be great was overwhelming, and rather than enjoying the process of creativity, he found himself running away from it. Eventually, however, Guettel embraced a healthier perspective, understanding that success isn't about innate ability but consistent effort. His work on The Light in the Piazza earned him the 2005 Tony Award, a testament to his perseverance and growth. The hidden danger of praising talent. There's another significant problem with praising talent. It can foster dishonesty. In a study where students were asked to report their scores on a set of challenging problems, nearly 40% of those praised for their ability lied about their results, inflating their scores. This need to protect their perceived intelligence made them act as if they were more successful than they actually were, instead of confronting their mistakes and learning from them. This behavior was a direct consequence of the fixed mindset that was nurtured by the emphasis on ability over effort. The impact of negative labels. On the flip side, negative labels can be just as damaging. Stereotypes, particularly those about race or gender, can have a lasting effect on an individual's self-perception and performance. For example, research has shown that when people are reminded of stereotypes about their abilities, like the stereotype that women are bad at math or that African Americans are less intelligent, it can negatively impact their performance on tests. This effect is more pronounced for individuals who hold a fixed mindset, as they internalize these labels, believing that their abilities are limited and unchangeable. However, when individuals adopt a growth mindset, they are less likely to be affected by stereotypes. Instead of seeing a stereotype as a reflection of their true abilities, they view it as something external and irrelevant to their potential for growth. The growth mindset allows them to challenge the stereotype and persevere in the face of adversity, continuing to work toward their goals despite societal pressures. Building confidence through growth mindset. In studies involving African American students, those with a growth mindset were able to see feedback even when it came from someone they perceived as a member of the establishment as a valuable learning opportunity. Those with a fixed mindset, on the other hand, viewed the same feedback as an attack, rejecting it and becoming defensive. A growth mindset doesn't just protect individuals from the harmful effects of stereotypes, it also helps them feel like they belong even in environments where they are in the minority. For example, women who believe in the growth mindset, who see their abilities as something that can improve with practice, are more likely to feel they belong in math and science fields, despite the challenges of stereotypes. The power of effort. How growth mindset makes a difference. In families that embrace the growth mindset, even children who might not initially seem talented in a certain area can thrive through hard work and dedication. Take the Polgar sisters, for example. They became some of the greatest female chess players in history, not because of innate talent, but because of their father's belief in the importance of effort over talent. Similarly, the children of a colleague of mine excelled in math, not because of a natural gift, but because they were raised with the belief that effort and hard work were the keys to success. When people adopt a growth mindset, they are not limited by external labels or negative stereotypes. They believe that with effort and persistence, they can continue to develop and reach their goals, no matter where they start. Conclusion. The key to unlocking potential. In the end, the growth mindset empowers individuals to overcome challenges, embrace feedback, and thrive in the face of adversity. It helps them see failure not as a sign of inadequacy, but as an opportunity to learn and improve. Whether you're an artist, a scientist, or a student, adopting a growth mindset can transform your approach to challenges and lead you to success beyond what you thought was possible. Chapter 4. Sports, the mindset of a champion. In the world of sports, there's a deep-rooted belief in talent. This belief often extends, or perhaps even thrives, within the expert community. It's within sports that the concept of a natural athlete first emerged, someone who seems to have an inherent ability to perform at a high level without much effort. The expectation that raw talent alone should lead to success is so ingrained that scouts and coaches often focus on finding these naturals, and teams go to great lengths to secure them, sometimes paying incredibly high sums. Billy Beane, a well-known name in baseball, was considered a natural talent by many. As Michael Lewis illustrates in Moneyball, Beane had an outstanding athletic background. By his sophomore year in high school, he was excelling in basketball, football, and baseball. His skills were undeniable, with a remarkable .500 batting average in one of the toughest leagues. But, despite his talent, Beane lacked the mindset necessary to succeed at the highest levels. This is where the fixed mindset comes into play. Billy Beane's difficulty was not merely in dealing with failure. It was as though he didn't know how to handle failure at all. As he advanced in his baseball career, every strikeout became a humiliation. Instead of working on improving his skills, Beane avoided addressing his weaknesses, feeling that a natural athlete shouldn't need to put in the effort. Effort, in his mind, was a sign of inadequacy, a concession that someone lacked the innate ability to succeed. Unfortunately, Beane's career as a player was trapped in this fixed mindset. His story, however, takes a fascinating turn when he transitions from player to general manager. Beane realized that success in baseball wasn't about talent alone, it was about process. He found inspiration in the mindset of a fellow player, Lenny Dykstra, who was the opposite of Beane in many ways. Dykstra had far fewer physical gifts, but an unwavering belief in his ability to persevere, and it was this mindset that made him successful. As Beane adopted this mindset and integrated it into his strategy as a general manager of the Oakland Athletics, he led the team to an incredible season in 2002, securing 103 wins with one of the smallest budgets in baseball. His success wasn't built on buying big-name players, but on finding individuals with the right mindset. The myth of the natural athlete. It's easy to assume that athletes who perform at the highest levels must possess extraordinary, almost otherworldly physical attributes. After all, physical traits like size, strength, and agility are visible to the naked eye. However, this reliance on visible attributes often misses the mark. Just because someone has the ideal body type for a sport doesn't guarantee they will succeed. Take Muggsy Bogues, the 5 feet 3 inches point guard in the NBA, or Doug Flutie, the small quarterback in the NFL. Both defied expectations based on their physical build. Then there's Pete Gray, a one-armed baseball player who reached the major leagues, or the legendary golfer Ben Hogan, who lacked the smooth, graceful swing often associated with great golfers. They all prove that physical limitations don't necessarily preclude greatness. Even in boxing, where physical measurements like reach and fist size are key indicators of a natural, Muhammad Ali defied these assumptions. Ali didn't possess the ideal physique of a champion boxer, and his style was unconventional. He kept his jaw exposed, he didn't block punches the traditional way, and his movements didn't adhere to the typical, perfect form. However, his brilliance wasn't physical, it was mental. Ali studied his opponents not just in terms of their fighting styles but their personalities. His psychological warfare against Sonny Liston, where he intentionally made Liston underestimate him, showcases how mindset can trump physical prowess. Michael Jordan, not a natural but a workhorse. Michael Jordan's rise to greatness is perhaps the most iconic example of how mindset can overcome supposed physical limitations. Jordan was famously cut from his high school varsity basketball team, and he wasn't immediately recruited by top colleges or drafted by NBA teams. Despite being overlooked early on, Jordan's determination was unmatched. He put in countless hours practicing his game, working on his weaknesses like defense and ball handling, and striving to improve in every aspect. Jordan's drive to continuously improve is legendary. Even after reaching the peak of success, he maintained an unrelenting work ethic, continually striving to improve his skills. His success wasn't due to a natural gift, but to his unparalleled mental toughness, which made him push through every obstacle. Babe Ruth, the unlikely natural. Babe Ruth is often considered a natural athlete because of his incredible home run hitting ability. However, Ruth was not initially the powerhouse he became known for. In fact, he struggled early on and wasn't a consistent hitter. His power came from his total commitment to his swings, and he worked tirelessly to improve his game. He also underwent physical conditioning to improve his fitness, which paid off in the years following his challenging 1925 season. Ruth's transformation is a testament to the importance of discipline, practice, and perseverance over reliance on innate ability. Wilma Rudolph, overcoming physical challenges. Wilma Rudolph, who became known as the fastest woman in the world after winning 3 gold medals in the 1960 Rome Olympics, faced significant physical challenges early in life. Born prematurely and suffering from polio, she was given little hope of ever walking again. However, through persistent physical therapy, she overcame these obstacles, regaining the use of her left leg. Her transformation didn't end there. She applied the same mindset to athletics, even when she was finishing last in races at first. She dedicated herself to improving and eventually became an Olympic legend. Jackie Joyner-Kersee, a relentless pursuit of excellence. Jackie Joyner-Kersee, often hailed as the greatest female athlete of all time, demonstrated that greatness isn't just about innate talent. Although she showed early promise in track, she didn't start as a world beater. Initially, she struggled and finished last in many races. But her dedication to training and her belief in improvement led to her dominance in the heptathlon, a demanding 7-part competition. Her success wasn't due to effortless talent but to a mindset that drove her to keep working, even when the going was tough. In the end, these stories demonstrate the power of the mindset over raw talent. Whether it's Billy Beane, Michael Jordan, or Wilma Rudolph, their achievements didn't come from relying solely on their innate abilities. They came from a relentless drive to improve, to work on weaknesses, and to never accept failure as an endpoint. Talent and hard work in sports, the power of the growth mindset. Did you know that for a long time, there was a belief in the sports world that physical training for golf would ruin your natural talent? The idea was that building strength would make you lose the touch needed to play the game. But then Tiger Woods came along, breaking this myth with his intense workout routines and relentless practice, winning every major tournament. In some cultures, pushing beyond your natural abilities through hard work was frowned upon. You were expected to accept your limitations and stay within your station in life. These cultures would have probably frowned on someone like Maury Wills, a baseball player from the 1950s and 60s, who worked tirelessly to improve his skills. Although he wasn't good enough to hit consistently at first, Wills didn't give up. After being sent to the minors by the Dodgers, he told his friends he'd be playing with Jackie Robinson in just 2 years. It wasn't that easy. Despite his optimism and 8 years of grueling practice, Wills wasn't ready for the big leagues. But when the Dodgers' shortstop got injured, Wills got his chance. However, his batting still wasn't there. Not giving up, he sought help from the first base coach. Even after hours of additional work, his batting didn't improve enough. Wills didn't quit. Instead, he turned his attention to stealing bases. By studying opposing pitchers and catchers, he figured out how to get the best jumps and perfect his slides. His speed, combined with his study of the game, led him to break Ty Cobb's stolen base record, a record that stood for 47 years. That season, Wills was voted the National League's most valuable player. The role of the mind in sports. You'd think the sports world would recognize how much effort, mental preparation, and practice contribute to success, yet many still focus on natural talent. Malcolm Gladwell suggests that society values natural ability over hard work despite how much we talk about self-improvement. We want to believe that champions are born different from us, and we don't want to think of them as ordinary people who became extraordinary through effort. But to me, that's the most amazing part. Take Marshall Faulk, for example, the legendary running back for the St. Louis Rams. Faulk was renowned for his uncanny ability to read the game, knowing where every player was on the field, even in chaotic moments. How did he do it? He spent years studying football. Growing up, he watched the game intently, asking himself, why are they running this play? Why are they doing that? His curiosity and dedication to understanding the game gave him extraordinary football intelligence, which his teammates and coaches considered a gift. But Faulk himself credited his success to years of study and learning, not some inherent talent. The downside of being a natural. But not all natural athletes thrive in the way we might expect. Sometimes being a natural can work against you, as it did for Billy Beane and John McEnroe. Their talent made them feel invincible, and as a result, they never learned how to push through adversity or handle setbacks. Bruce Jenner, now Caitlyn Jenner, revealed that if it weren't for his dyslexia, he might not have become a champion in the decathlon. His learning disability forced him to work harder, teaching him the value of persistence. The same can be said for Pedro Martinez, a brilliant pitcher for the Boston Red Sox, whose talent alone wasn't enough to help him during the 2003 American League Championship. In a high-stakes game against the Yankees, after pitching a fantastic start, Martinez lost his composure as his lead slipped away. Rather than stay focused, he hit a batter, threatened others, and physically confronted a coach. His meltdown cost the Red Sox the game, and they eventually lost the series. His failure to handle the pressure and his inability to learn from the setback showed how important character and mental strength are beyond raw talent. Character and the growth mindset. As the sports writers on a plane to Boston noted, character is crucial. They saw it in the Yankees, especially after the events of September 11th. The city was devastated, and the Yankees became a symbol of hope. Even though they were exhausted and injured, they fought through each challenge and kept winning, showing the resilience that fans needed to see. Contrast that with Pedro Martinez, who, instead of rising to the challenge, let his frustration take over. But a year later, the Red Sox turned things around. They worked as a team, not relying on individual stars. Their newfound teamwork, combined with a growth mindset, helped them overcome the Yankees and win the World Series for the first time since 1904. The team learned that character, resilience, hard work, and the ability to learn from setbacks could be cultivated, not just inherited. Pete Sampras and the comeback. Pete Sampras, the legendary tennis player, demonstrated this growth mindset during his 2000 Wimbledon final. Trying to win his 13th Grand Slam title, Sampras was losing and about to be defeated in the second set. But rather than give up, he reflected on past matches where he had made comebacks. Drawing on his previous experiences, Sampras turned the match around and won the next 3 sets, securing his victory. It was a perfect example of how the ability to overcome setbacks, using both mental focus and past lessons, can lead to success. Jackie Joyner-Kersey's strength. Jackie Joyner-Kersey, one of the greatest female athletes, exemplified mental strength during her last World Championship. In the final event of her heptathlon, she felt an asthma attack coming on. Instead of succumbing to the pressure, she coached herself to push through. "Just keep pumping your arms," she told herself. Her self-talk and focus helped her secure victory despite the challenges. Later, in her last Olympics, she faced a hamstring injury that threatened to end her career. Though her first 5 jumps in the long jump were poor, her resilience and determination led her to a 6th jump that earned her a bronze medal, showing that even the greatest athletes experience failure. But it's their ability to persevere that makes them champions. The heart, will, mind, and character of a true champion. No matter how it's described, it's the same idea. It's that inner drive that keeps you practicing day in and day out, and it's also what helps you pull off your best performance when it matters most. Think about how John McEnroe would reflect on his losses. He'd mention all the external factors, how it was too cold or too hot, or when he felt distracted or jealous. Yet, Billie Jean King argues that true champions are the ones who can perform when everything feels off, when emotions aren't right, or when their game isn't on point. Here's how she discovered what being a true champion means. Billie Jean King was once facing Margaret Smith, later Margaret Court, in the finals at Forest Hills. At the time, Court was at the peak of her career. King had played against her numerous times, only winning once. In the first set, King played exceptionally well, didn't miss a volley, and built a solid lead. But by the end of that set, Court had taken the win. In the second set, King once again built a solid lead and was serving to win the set. But suddenly, Court turned things around and won both the set and the match. King initially didn't understand what had just happened. How could she have a strong lead and still lose such an important match? Then, in an instant, she had an epiphany. A champion doesn't just rely on perfect circumstances, they raise their game when it counts the most. They can summon a higher level of focus and resilience when the match is on the line. Jackie Joyner-Kersee, another renowned athlete, also had her own moment of realization. At just 15, during the AAU Junior Olympics, she found herself at the final event, the 800-meter race, in a competition where everything depended on this race. Exhausted and up against a seasoned distance runner, she dug deep and pushed herself beyond her limits, crossing the finish line and securing the win. That victory showed her something critical. With determination and effort, she could compete at the highest levels and even surpass the odds. Mia Hamm, often considered the best female soccer player in the world, has a similar belief. When asked what the most important trait for a soccer player is, she didn't hesitate: mental toughness. It's about being able to remain focused and not letting fatigue, injury, or opposition sway your concentration. Mia Hamm admits, though, that staying mentally tough is one of the toughest aspects of the game, one that she works on constantly no matter how hard the situation gets. She humbly notes, "Because I don't think I'm the best, that's what drives me to be one day." In sports, there are always moments when everything is on the line and you need to step up or face defeat. Jack Nicklaus, the legendary golfer, faced these high-stakes moments time and time again, and of all the critical shots he needed to make, can you guess how many he missed? Just one. One shot in his entire career. That's the mentality of a true champion. John Wooden, the iconic basketball coach, also shared a remarkable story from his time as a high school coach. Eddie Polsky, a player who had often been overlooked, asked Wooden for a chance to prove himself. Despite doubts, Wooden started Eddie in a crucial game against a tough opponent, Fort Wayne Central. Eddie, against all expectations, dominated the game, shutting down the state's best player and leading his team to victory. Eddie never sat on the bench again and was named MVP for the next 2 years. These champions, King, Joyner-Kersee, Hamm, Nicklaus, and Wooden, didn't consider themselves special or entitled to success. They were people who worked tirelessly, persevered under pressure, and expanded their abilities when needed. They showed character, which is what truly separates champions from others. Sustaining success. While ability might get you to the top, it's character that keeps you there. Athletes like Darryl Strawberry, Mike Tyson, and Martina Hingis achieved greatness but couldn't maintain it due to personal struggles and injuries. But many other champions, like Ben Hogan, faced setbacks like major accidents and came back to the top because of their strong character and work ethic. John Wooden once said, "Ability can get you to the top, but it takes character to keep you there." It's easy to think you can just switch on success once you've reached the top, but it takes constant preparation, hard work, and character to maintain it. When you read about teams or athletes who consistently win, remember, it's not just about talent, it's about their unwavering character. The growth mindset and character. Psychologist Stuart Biddle and his colleagues studied the mindsets of athletes. Those with a fixed mindset believe that ability is something you're born with and cannot change, while those with a growth mindset believe that with hard work and dedication you can always improve. Those with a growth mindset were the ones who showed true character. They focused on continuous improvement, valuing effort and learning from setbacks. Champions like Jackie Joyner-Kersee and John Wooden found joy in the process, not just the victory itself. Wooden explained that even without winning a national championship, the joy he found in playing at the highest level of his ability was equally rewarding. In contrast, athletes with a fixed mindset like John McEnroe struggled to embrace failure. McEnroe would often lash out in frustration after a loss, especially if it was to someone close to him. For him, losing was a sign that his talent wasn't enough. His failures didn't motivate him to work harder, they pushed him into denial, blaming external factors for his lack of success. What is success and how do you define it? For athletes with a growth mindset, success isn't about outshining others or proving superiority, it's about personal growth and striving to be your best. Jackie Joyner-Kersee once said, "The joy of athletics has never resided in winning. I find just as much happiness in improving and doing my best." This mindset was central to Tiger Woods' philosophy. Even when Woods didn't win, he would still feel pride in his effort, saying, "I'm proud of the way I hung in there." Winning was important to him, but giving his best and pushing himself to his limits was even more significant. For those with a fixed mindset, success is about proving that you are better than others, which leads to a fragile sense of self-worth. McEnroe, for example, described a period when he felt his ego inflated to the point where it was almost impossible to fit through the door. This kind of mindset leads to fragile confidence and resistance to change. Embracing failure. Athletes with a growth mindset see failure as an opportunity to learn and improve. Michael Jordan famously admitted, "I've missed more than 9,000 shots, lost almost 300 games, and missed 26 game-winning shots. But that's why I succeed, because I keep learning from my failures." He never let his setbacks define him, he used them to fuel his drive for excellence. In contrast, athletes like John McEnroe, who struggled with the idea of losing, allowed failures to chip away at his self-esteem. His attitude was often, "If I fail, it's because something external went wrong." This tendency to blame others only made it harder for him to improve. Taking control of success. One key difference between those with a growth mindset and those with a fixed mindset is the ability to take charge of the process. Michael Jordan, as he got older, worked on conditioning and refined his game. Tiger Woods did the same by constantly experimenting with his swing and course management, knowing that mastery was a process that never stopped. For athletes with a fixed mindset, the idea of taking charge of their success was often foreign. McEnroe, for instance, never took full responsibility for his failures. He blamed external circumstances, his coaches, and even wished he had been part of a team sport to mask his flaws. In the end, champions aren't just born with talent, they are made through hard work, mental toughness, and a relentless commitment to improving, no matter how tough things get. True champions embrace failure as a chance to grow and take control of their success. What it means to be a star, the responsibility and mindset of great athletes. What does it truly mean to be a star athlete? Do the standout players in a team carry fewer responsibilities than the rest of the team? Are they just expected to perform well and secure victories, or is there a deeper responsibility that comes with their role? Let's explore this through the eyes of some of the greatest figures in sports history, starting with Michael Jordan's perspective. Michael Jordan believes that the key to success in sports isn't about showing off one's personal talent, but about understanding the importance of teamwork. In our society, it's sometimes hard to grasp the idea of playing a role rather than focusing solely on being a superstar, he says. While individual brilliance can win games, it's team effort that clinches championships. Take Coach John Wooden, for example. Despite being known for his average tactical and strategic skills, Wooden went on to lead his UCLA teams to 10 national championships. His secret? He mastered the art of getting players to embrace their roles within a cohesive team. Even when coaching Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, he knew that focusing solely on Kareem's scoring ability wouldn't necessarily guarantee championships. Would we have won 3 national championships with Kareem if we had just developed the team around his scoring abilities? Never, he reflected. This insight speaks volumes about the power of team dynamics over individual glory. When we examine athletes with a fixed mindset, it becomes clear how this outlook can hinder the team's success. Fixed mindset athletes tend to crave validation for their natural talent. This drive to prove themselves as superstars can be counterproductive, especially when it clashes with the broader goal of achieving collective success. Consider the story of Patrick Ewing. During his draft year, the New York Knicks were ecstatic to land him. He was an undeniable force. However, when the team asked Ewing to play power forward alongside center Bill Cartwright, Ewing resisted. He didn't want to play a position that didn't match his idea of the star role. His refusal to embrace the necessary adjustments led to Cartwright being traded and ultimately the Knicks never winning a championship during Ewing's time with the team. Then there's the case of football star Keyshawn Johnson, whose mindset leaned heavily toward individual success. When asked about comparing himself to an opposing player, Johnson described himself as a star in the sky forever, contrasting his greatness to the fleeting nature of a flashlight. However, when Johnson was asked to adjust his role for the team, he made it clear that he would only be effective if he were the primary focus of the offense. His self-centered view of teamwork led to his eventual trade and deactivation from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Another crucial element in the mindset of star athletes is how they speak about their team. When some of the greatest athletes are interviewed after a game, they use the word "we" to reflect the importance of their role within the group. Others, however, refer to themselves as the central figure, often calling their teammates an external part of their personal success. Team sports, no matter the role. Almost every sport, whether it's a team sport like basketball, football, or something more individual like tennis or golf, relies on teamwork. Even individual athletes are surrounded by a support network, including coaches, trainers, and mentors. This was powerfully demonstrated by open water swimmer Diana Nyad, who broke the world record by swimming 102.5 miles. While Nyad was the one swimming, it was the work of 51 other people, guides, divers, nutritionists, and experts that made the feat possible. Her name may be in the record books, but it was a team effort that ensured her success. Hearing the mindsets of athletes. Athletes' mindsets reveal a lot about their approach to success and failure. Consider the example of Isis Tillis, a talented basketball player from Duke University. Tillis struggled with the idea of living up to expectations, fearing that if she didn't win a national championship, she would end up like her father, a former boxer who never quite made it to the top. This somebody-nobody mindset, the idea that winning makes you a somebody and losing makes you a nobody, was holding her back. Despite her immense potential, her self-doubt often impacted her performance. Instead of focusing on personal growth and development, she was paralyzed by the pressure of expectations. Candace Parker, on the other hand, had a different mindset. Her father instilled in her the belief that hard work and effort would lead to success. When Parker faced adversity, like a difficult tournament game or a setback from an injury, she used these challenges as motivation. She knew that success wasn't about being the best in the eyes of others, it was about improving and putting in the work. After a knee surgery, Parker recognized that her timing, endurance, and skill needed refining. She actively worked on these areas, not content with simply resting on her previous success. She ended up winning the dunk contest, becoming the first woman to ever do so, beating out 5 male competitors. The difference between Parker and Tillis highlights the contrasting approaches to greatness. Parker's mindset focused on personal growth, responsibility, and the effort to improve led to real success. Tillis, burdened by the fear of being a nobody, let the pressure hold her back from truly tapping into her potential. The true essence of greatness. The common thread among the most successful athletes is their commitment to self-improvement and the growth mindset. Even the most competitive athletes who desire to be the best recognize that true greatness doesn't come from an inflated ego or from the fear of failure. It comes from the willingness to work tirelessly, learn from mistakes, and put the team's success ahead of personal glory. John Wooden put it best when he said that many of the naturals, those with raw talent, are often forgotten because they never truly embrace the importance of teamwork and personal growth. In the end, being a star isn't just about individual achievement, it's about embracing your role, improving consistently, and contributing to the collective success of the team. Whether you're on the court, field, or in the water, greatness is built through effort, responsibility, and collaboration. Chapter 5. Business, Mindset, and Leadership. Enron and the Talent Mindset. In 2001, the corporate world was rocked by a stunning revelation. Enron, once hailed as the company of the future, had collapsed. How did such a promising business crumble into scandal? Was it due to incompetence, corruption, or something deeper? The answer lies in mindset. Malcolm Gladwell in The New Yorker pointed out that American corporations had become overly fixated on the concept of talent. Influenced by management experts at McKinsey and Company, many believed that just as in sports, companies should invest heavily in recruiting natural-born talent to outpace their competition. This talent mindset became the new norm in American business culture, and it played a pivotal role in Enron's downfall. While hiring skilled individuals with prestigious backgrounds isn't inherently bad, Enron's mistake was taking this obsession too far. The company not only placed immense value on talent but also created a culture where appearing exceptionally gifted was paramount. This, in turn, pushed employees into a fixed mindset where they feared appearing inadequate or flawed. Research supports this idea. For example, a study from the University of Hong Kong found that students with a fixed mindset were so afraid of looking incompetent that they refused to take courses that would improve their abilities. Similarly, when students were praised for their intelligence rather than their effort, many of them fabricated their performance when faced with challenges. The fixed mindset does not allow for growth or self-correction. It creates an environment where individuals are more likely to cover up mistakes rather than confront them. Enron's culture exemplified this, as its leaders avoided admitting their mistakes and instead tried to maintain an illusion of perfection. The growth mindset and thriving organizations. In contrast to Enron's fall, Jim Collins, in his book Good to Great, explored why some companies transition from mediocrity to greatness and sustain that success for years. Collins and his team studied companies that had shown extraordinary stock growth for over 15 years and compared them with others in the same industry that had not made the leap. One key factor distinguished these thriving companies: the type of leadership at the helm. The successful companies were led by humble, growth-oriented leaders, not larger-than-life, charismatic figures focused on ego. These leaders were open to feedback, willing to acknowledge mistakes, and continually sought improvement. They didn't lead by displaying superiority but by fostering a culture of learning and collaboration. Take, for example, Alan Wurtzel, CEO of Circuit City. Instead of trying to impress his board members with his brilliance, he used them to learn and improve his understanding of the company's needs. He would relentlessly question and debate ideas with his team until he fully grasped the company's direction. His mindset wasn't about proving his personal greatness, but about getting the company to thrive by focusing on progress and adaptation. Mindset and management decisions. In a study by Robert Wood and Albert Bandura, graduate students in business were tasked with running a simulated furniture company. They were divided into two groups, one with a fixed mindset and the other with a growth mindset. The task was challenging and both groups initially struggled. The group with a fixed mindset, focused on their innate abilities and reputation, struggled to adapt. They didn't learn from their mistakes and had difficulty adjusting their strategies. On the other hand, the growth mindset group embraced the feedback, viewed setbacks as learning opportunities, and continuously adapted. As a result, they became more effective at motivating employees and improving productivity. Their ability to grow from challenges allowed them to succeed, while the fixed mindset group remained stagnant. Leadership and the fixed mindset. Collins observed that leaders with a fixed mindset, like those at Enron, focused heavily on protecting and displaying their superiority. They often viewed their role as being above their teams rather than nurturing and developing those teams. This mindset led to decisions that were more about maintaining their ego than ensuring the company's long-term success. One example is Lee Iacocca, who famously turned around Chrysler before becoming obsessed with his personal fame. After achieving success, Iacocca focused more on building his public image than on ensuring Chrysler's continued success. As a result, the company fell back into mediocrity. Many of these leaders believed that genius didn't need a strong team and that they alone were capable of guiding the company to success. They often undermined their teams to feed their egos rather than investing in team development. As Collins put it, these leaders preferred the genius with 1,000 helpers model where the focus was on their brilliance rather than on building a sustainable organization. The role of egos in corporate downfalls. The rise of the superstar CEO can be traced back to figures like Iacocca, whose success led to a shift in how business leaders were perceived. As Iacocca's fame grew, business journalists began labeling CEOs as visionary leaders or business titans, and this trend pushed executives to focus more on their personal image than on their company's long-term health. This mindset led to a string of corporate scandals where leaders prioritized their own egos over the well-being of the company. Enron's leadership, including Kenneth Lay and Jeffrey Skilling, was emblematic of this attitude. They were more interested in maintaining the image of genius than in facing reality or making necessary changes. Similarly, CEOs like Albert Dunlap of Scott Paper and Jerry Levin of AOL Time Warner operated under the belief that they were infallible, which ultimately led to disastrous results for their companies. These fixed-mindset CEOs were often more concerned with proving their superiority than with building sustainable businesses. They used their teams as tools to boost their own egos rather than investing in developing those around them. In contrast, the most successful leaders, such as Collins' Good to Great CEOs, focused on self-improvement, building strong teams, and addressing their deficiencies. Leaders with a fixed mindset, a case study of Iacocca, Dunlap, and others. Iacocca, from hero to fallen icon. Warren Bennis, a renowned leadership expert, studied the world's top corporate figures. Many of them, like the great leaders he observed, didn't start out with the goal of becoming leaders. They were driven by their passions, and through sheer dedication, they found themselves in leadership positions. They didn't seek validation, their actions spoke for themselves. However, Lee Iacocca's story contrasts with this idea. While he certainly had a passion for the car industry, Iacocca's primary goal wasn't just success in his field but gaining recognition and approval, particularly from Henry Ford II. Iacocca craved the prestigious status that came with being part of the elite Ford circle. Ford's corporate headquarters, often described as a palace, was where Iacocca aspired to be the crown prince, a term he used to describe his relationship with Henry Ford. The lifestyle was luxurious, complete with fine dining and impeccable service. Iacocca's career at Ford was marked by success, notably his promotion of the Ford Mustang. Yet, he was blindsided when Henry Ford forced him out, an act that left Iacocca shocked and angry. Despite being aware of Henry Ford's ruthless management style and his own similar practices, Iacocca's fixed mindset, believing he was inherently superior, made him believe he was invincible. When Ford's rejection hit, Iacocca's self-image was shattered, leading him to question his abilities. Ironically, his firing turned out to be a blessing in disguise. Iacocca went on to rescue Chrysler Motors from the brink of collapse, turning his fortunes around. His autobiography, published during this period, declared him a hero. However, his fixed mindset resurfaced. Instead of focusing on long-term improvements, Iacocca's obsession with self-validation led him to make decisions focused on enhancing his public image, even at the expense of Chrysler's stability. As Chrysler faced new challenges, Iacocca's focus on his ego grew stronger. He rejected critiques, fired those who could overshadow him, and steered the company away from needed innovations, all in pursuit of maintaining his personal legacy. Iacocca's leadership, which once saved Chrysler, was now hindered by his desperate need for validation and recognition. Albert Dunlap, the superstar of short-term gains. Albert Dunlap, another figure driven by a fixed mindset, made his mark by saving companies. However, his definition of saving was radically different from a long-term vision. Dunlap was notorious for slashing jobs, closing plants, and restructuring businesses solely for the purpose of making a profit in the short term. He was incredibly successful at selling these companies for large profits, earning millions in the process. Dunlap viewed himself as a genius in the business world, comparing himself to Michael Jordan and Bruce Springsteen. However, Dunlap's approach lacked depth. He didn't care about sustainable growth or corporate responsibility, he only measured success by immediate profit. His work wasn't about creating something lasting, it was about proving his genius and inflating his ego. His tenure at Scott Paper, where he made millions in a short time, epitomized his approach to business, profit without long-term planning. When Dunlap took over Sunbeam, he continued his pattern of drastic cuts, firing thousands of employees and closing plants. Despite these drastic measures, his time at Sunbeam was short-lived as the company's true financial troubles caught up with him. In his pursuit of fame and accolades, Dunlap's failure to address the deeper needs of the business led to his downfall. The smartest guys in the room, Enron's tragic leaders. Enron, once a powerhouse in the energy sector, became infamous for its spectacular collapse, largely due to the fixed mindsets of its top executives, Kenneth Lay and Jeffrey Skilling. Both men saw themselves as brilliant visionaries, and their leadership was defined by arrogance and a sense of intellectual superiority. Lay, the company's founder and CEO, was known for his condescending attitude toward those who worked under him. He believed himself to be above the operational details of the company, choosing instead to maintain a regal image. His co-CEO, Rich Kinder, was the one who actually ensured the company met its financial goals. Despite this, Lay treated him dismissively, leading to his eventual departure. Jeffrey Skilling, Enron's president and later CEO, believed himself to be the smartest person in any room. His approach to business was to intimidate others, treating anyone who disagreed with him as inferior. He had so much confidence in his own ideas that he pushed Enron's business to record profits without regard for the long-term consequences. This resulted in financial manipulation and deceit as Enron began to report profits that didn't even exist. As with Iacocca and Dunlap, both Lay and Skilling were consumed by their egos. They were more focused on their personal image and proving their genius than on leading Enron to sustainable success. This ultimately led to the company's downfall, and they were left to deal with the consequences of their actions. The AOL-Time Warner merger, a clash of fixed mindsets. The merger between AOL and Time Warner in the late 1990s serves as another cautionary tale of the fixed mindset in action. Both CEOs, Steve Case of AOL and Jerry Levin of Time Warner, were driven by a belief in their own intellectual superiority. They were more concerned with personal power and prestige than with the actual success of the companies they led. As the merger unfolded, both leaders became more focused on maintaining their personal influence rather than making the merger work. Their egos clashed, and they both sought credit for the success of the company even when it became clear that the merger was faltering. When Richard Parsons, a new CEO, stepped in to address the issues, Case resisted, fearing that someone else might receive the credit. The result? AOL Time Warner suffered one of the largest corporate losses in history. The egos of Case and Levin had derailed what could have been a successful collaboration, showing once again the dangers of a fixed mindset in leadership. The leaders mentioned, such as Iacocca, Dunlap, Lay, Skilling, Case, and Levin, illustrate the potential downfall of companies when individuals with a fixed mindset take the helm. These were brilliant leaders, but their fixation on personal legacy and validation often took precedence over the long-term success of their organizations. They didn't intend to cause harm, but when critical decisions arose, they chose actions that made them look good in the short term rather than serving the company's best interests. Their strategies were all about shifting blame, inflating stock prices, silencing critics, and rewarding themselves, often at the expense of employees and the company's future. These leaders were often surrounded by sycophants, reinforcing their belief that they were untouchable. They lived in a bubble where their perceived brilliance was constantly validated, and they avoided confronting failure or mistakes. This created an environment where their egos were stroked and their sense of entitlement grew. For instance, Kenneth Lay from Enron not only took millions in salary and personal loans from the company, but also misused corporate assets, like family jets. Even in tough times, leaders like Lee Iacocca threw extravagant parties to maintain an image of grandeur. It's a pattern seen in other tech and financial giants, where top executives thought they deserved everything, no matter the cost to others. This mindset, however, comes with serious consequences. These leaders didn't just avoid self-reflection. They also devalued the people beneath them. The little guy was often disregarded, with harsh management tactics used to keep employees under control. Leaders like Iacocca and Jerry Levin had reputations for being cruel, with Levin even being likened to the infamous Roman Emperor Caligula. CEOs like Paul Kazarian, previously of Sunbeam, were described as perfectionists, but this term often masked abusive behavior, such as throwing objects at employees. What's more troubling is that these leaders often targeted competent, capable individuals who posed a threat to their fragile egos. As a result, the workplace became a toxic environment focused solely on pleasing the boss rather than encouraging growth or innovation. Leaders in this fixed mindset had no interest in developing their employees, and the entire company suffered as a result. In fact, this type of leadership fosters a culture of mediocrity. The fear of judgment prevents creativity and risk-taking, halting progress and causing organizations to stagnate. In contrast, growth mindset leaders approach their role as a journey of learning and development. Andrew Carnegie famously said that he wanted to be remembered as someone who brought in people smarter than him, a belief that highlights the importance of recognizing potential in others. Growth-minded leaders focus on developing not just themselves but their teams, believing that everyone can evolve and achieve greatness. Take Jack Welch of General Electric, for example. Under his leadership, GE's value skyrocketed from $14 billion to $490 billion, becoming the world's most valuable company. Welch didn't distance himself from his employees. He made a point to engage with them at all levels. Unlike Iacocca, who often isolated himself with an elite circle, Welch went straight to factory floors and listened to frontline workers, making them feel valued. He didn't glorify individual achievements but rather emphasized teamwork and collaboration, where everyone's contribution was appreciated. Welch's success wasn't due to arrogance or a self-centered approach, but rather a commitment to fostering growth, humility, and development. In fact, he admitted to moments of hubris, especially during a failed acquisition that cost GE hundreds of millions of dollars. He learned from those mistakes, realizing that real leadership is about embracing change, being open to new ideas, and empowering others. This mindset shift transformed GE from a corporate giant into a thriving, growth-focused organization. Another hallmark of growth mindset leaders is their ability to acknowledge mistakes and encourage learning from them. Welch recognized that his company's culture needed to be aligned with values of respect and growth, not fear and control. As a result, he eliminated toxic leadership behaviors, ensuring that GE's workforce was nurtured, not bullied. Instead of rewarding fear-based productivity, he shifted the focus to mentoring, collaboration, and teamwork. For growth-minded leaders like Welch, leadership is not about maintaining power or indulging in a sense of superiority. It's about helping others rise, creating a culture of trust and continuous improvement. Welch's leadership philosophy, which focused on personal growth and developing others, was central to GE's success. He understood that leadership isn't about flaunting status or making others feel inferior. It's about fostering an environment where everyone can thrive and contribute to the greater success of the organization. Transforming company cultures, the stories of Lou Gerstner and Mulcahy, and the importance of growth mindset. In the late 1980s, IBM was struggling. The company had developed a toxic culture of arrogance and elitism, where the focus wasn't on teamwork but internal power struggles. Deals were being made but never followed through, and the needs of the customer were largely ignored. The company was heading towards failure, but the board of directors was aware of the looming crisis. In 1993, they approached Lou Gerstner to take over as CEO, but initially he rejected the offer. However, after persistent pressure, including a personal plea from President Clinton, Gerstner reluctantly agreed. Upon his arrival, he realized IBM's problems were deeply rooted in its culture. There was little collaboration and a strong sense of hierarchy that stifled innovation and cooperation. Gerstner's first move was to break down these barriers. Just 6 days after he took the role, he sent a company-wide memo stating his intention to visit operations and engage with employees to strengthen the company. He prioritized communication and opened the lines of dialogue throughout the organization. In his book, he dedicated his work to the employees who never gave up on the company, seeing them as the real heroes in IBM's transformation. He immediately attacked the elitist culture by dismantling the management committee, a group that was seen as the ultimate source of power within the company. He valued expertise over hierarchy and often turned to individuals outside the upper ranks for guidance. His belief was simple: expertise should come from those who are most capable regardless of position. He made it clear that collaboration and teamwork would be the cornerstone of IBM's future success. Gerstner's leadership style was marked by a shift in priorities. He fired executives who indulged in internal politics and promoted those who were willing to help their colleagues. He also restructured the incentive system to encourage collaboration, shifting the focus from individual performance to collective success. This was a crucial message. Success wasn't about individual glory but about working as a unified team. One of Gerstner's most notable achievements was addressing IBM's customer relations. Customers had grown frustrated with the company's bureaucratic systems, excessive pricing, and lack of attention to their needs. In a bold move, Gerstner announced a drastic reduction in prices for IBM's mainframe computers, signaling the company's commitment to putting customers first. Despite Wall Street's early skepticism, Gerstner remained resolute. By 2002, IBM had turned around completely, with stock prices soaring by 800%, and it was recognized as a global leader in IT services, hardware, and software. The story of Mulcahy and Xerox's turnaround. In 2000, Mulcahy took the helm at Xerox, a company in deep financial trouble. Xerox was $17 billion in debt, facing SEC investigations, and its stock had plummeted from over $63 to just $4 per share. Despite these dire circumstances, Mulcahy managed to steer the company back to profitability within just 3 years, earning recognition as one of the most impressive turnaround stories in corporate history. Mulcahy's success was rooted in her ability to learn quickly. She immersed herself in understanding the company's financials, including taking courses on debt, inventory, and taxes. Her weekend routine involved poring over binders of financial data as though preparing for a final exam. Her deep knowledge allowed her to make informed decisions and address the company's operational weaknesses head-on. Although she had to make tough decisions, including a 30% reduction in the workforce, Mulcahy maintained a compassionate leadership style. She regularly engaged with employees, offering apologies for tough decisions and ensuring the morale of the remaining workforce remained high. She also preserved Xerox's unique culture, including keeping employee benefits like birthday time off, showing her commitment to both the financial and emotional well-being of the company. Mulcahy's approach was not about personal ego but about ensuring Xerox's survival and revitalization. She wanted to save the company for the employees who had supported her, and this focus on people, combined with her tough decision-making, ultimately led to Xerox's recovery. In 2004, she was recognized as one of the most effective CEOs in America, demonstrating the power of a growth mindset in leadership. Growth mindset in leadership, the key to success. Both Gerstner and Mulcahy exhibited a growth mindset, believing that people can develop and improve through effort and learning rather than being limited by inherent abilities. This mindset was fundamental to their success in leading these organizations through challenging times. In contrast, fixed mindset leaders who believe that abilities are static and unchangeable often fall victim to egotism, hierarchy, and a lack of innovation. These leaders focus on preserving their status rather than fostering an environment of growth, collaboration, and continuous improvement. The impact of growth mindset on group dynamics. Research conducted by Robert Wood and colleagues examined how groups with different mindsets, fixed and growth, approached problem solving. In this study, management teams were assigned to run a simulated furniture company. Over time, the groups with a growth mindset outperformed those with a fixed mindset. The growth-minded groups were more open to discussing their decisions, sharing feedback, and learning from mistakes, which led to better decision-making and stronger collaboration. On the other hand, fixed mindset groups were more focused on maintaining their status and avoiding criticism. This often led to groupthink, a phenomenon where teams fail to critically evaluate ideas or voice concerns, leading to poor decisions. Groupthink can be catastrophic in leadership, as seen in historical failures like the Bay of Pigs invasion, where advisors blindly followed their leader without voicing doubts. In contrast, leaders like Alfred Sloan of General Motors actively sought out dissenting opinions, understanding that disagreement could help refine decisions. Encouraging constructive criticism is vital in preventing groupthink and fostering a culture of innovation. The challenge of leading the praise generation. Today's workforce is shaped by a generation of individuals who have been heavily praised and encouraged for their natural talents. However, this type of praise can lead to entitlement and fragility, as individuals may struggle with challenges or feedback that challenges their abilities. In the corporate world, this presents a challenge. Companies are finding it difficult to cultivate a workforce that is resilient, capable of handling criticism, and willing to engage in long-term growth. To address this, companies need to shift from simply rewarding talent to rewarding effort, learning from mistakes, and embracing challenges. Rather than offering praise for innate talent, companies should focus on praising employees for their ability to take initiative, persist through difficulties, and accept constructive feedback. By creating a culture that values growth and resilience over mere success, businesses can develop a stronger, more adaptable workforce. Are negotiators born or made? Successful businesses often rely heavily on effective negotiators to thrive. The ability to negotiate well is a vital skill in the world of business. But the question remains, are great negotiators born with the skill, or is it something they can develop over time? Researchers Laura Cray and Michael Hasselhun conducted studies that demonstrate how mindsets, either fixed or growth-oriented, affect negotiation outcomes. In one experiment, participants were split into two groups. One group read an article suggesting that negotiation ability is fixed, while the other group read an article explaining that negotiation skills can grow and develop. The results were striking. Those with a growth mindset who believed that negotiation skills could be learned and improved were far more likely to choose tasks that involved learning from their mistakes rather than choosing tasks where they could simply showcase their existing abilities. Nearly 88% of growth mindset individuals chose tasks that would help them grow compared to only 47% of those with a fixed mindset. In a follow-up study, participants with a growth mindset significantly outperformed those with a fixed mindset in real-world negotiations. In these negotiations, which included discussions over salary and benefits, those with the growth mindset were more persistent, found creative solutions, and achieved better results overall. Further studies with MBA students also confirmed that individuals with a growth mindset tended to perform better in negotiation courses, securing higher grades due to their ability to embrace challenges, learn from failure, and improve over time. This shows that not only can growth mindset individuals negotiate better for themselves, but they also come up with creative solutions that benefit both parties involved. Are managers born or made? The same principle applies to managers and leaders. It's a common belief that great leaders are born with innate abilities, but research suggests that effective leadership can also be developed. One key factor in this development is the mindset that managers bring to their role. Peter Heslin, Don Vandewall, and Gary Latham found that many managers with a fixed mindset view their employees as either inherently competent or not. These managers tend to neglect coaching or developmental efforts and miss opportunities to help their employees grow. They're often resistant to feedback and may not notice when their employees improve. On the other hand, managers with a growth mindset are committed to both their own growth and the development of their employees. They actively offer coaching, recognize improvement, and welcome feedback. A study by Heslin and colleagues showed that after a brief workshop on growth mindset principles, managers shifted significantly in their approach, becoming more supportive, more likely to coach employees, and better at identifying improvements in performance. Are leaders born or made? The idea that leaders are made, not born, is another important concept. Warren Bennis, a renowned leadership expert, interviewed many great leaders and found that they all agreed that leadership is something developed over time through experience and self-improvement, not a trait that one is born with. However, many individuals, especially those promoted to managerial roles, may start off eager to learn but eventually stop striving for improvement once they have learned the basics. They settle into their roles rather than continuing to develop into true leaders. Organizations often focus on hiring people with natural leadership qualities, but as John Zenger and Joseph Folkman point out, this mindset can lead to missed opportunities. People who may not seem to have natural leadership qualities might actually have great potential for growth. When organizations focus only on talent and overlook development, they risk stifling the growth of those who have the potential to lead. Organizational mindsets, fixed versus growth. An organization can also adopt a fixed or growth mindset, which can profoundly impact its culture and success. Companies that value natural talent and believe that employees either have it or they don't create a culture of genius. In contrast, companies that focus on the potential for growth and development among all employees foster a culture of development. Research on Fortune 500 and Fortune 1000 companies found that those with a growth mindset created a more positive work environment. Employees in growth mindset companies reported higher levels of trust, empowerment, and commitment. They also felt more supported when it came to taking risks and being creative. In contrast, those in fixed mindset organizations often felt that their companies didn't support innovation or risk-taking and were more likely to witness unethical behavior in their organizations. In these growth mindset companies, leaders and managers were more likely to see potential in their employees and help them develop into future leaders. They valued continuous learning and collaboration, which is key in today's ever-changing business world. Conclusion: the power of a growth mindset. In conclusion, whether it's negotiators, managers, or leaders, the belief that abilities and skills can grow and develop is a powerful force. A growth mindset can lead to better outcomes in negotiations, improved leadership qualities, and a thriving organizational culture. On the other hand, a fixed mindset, where talent is viewed as static, limits growth and potential both at the individual and organizational levels. The key takeaway? Success is not determined by natural talent alone, but by the willingness to learn, adapt, and develop. Chapter 6. Relationships, Mindsets, and Love or Not. Ever heard the saying that the course of true love never runs smooth? Well, it's true for many people. The journey to finding true love is often filled with challenges like disappointment and heartbreak. Some individuals let these painful experiences leave a permanent mark, preventing them from having fulfilling relationships in the future. But others heal and move on. What is it that makes some people bounce back while others remain stuck? We set out to uncover this by gathering over 100 people to share their worst rejection experiences. One woman shared how, when she first arrived in New York, she was incredibly lonely. She didn't know anyone, and the city felt foreign to her. After a year of misery, she met Jack, and their connection was immediate. It felt like they had known each other forever, and soon they were living together. She thought they would be together for life. They shared 2 blissful years together. But one day, she came home to find a note from Jack. He had left, and he didn't even sign it with love. He told her not to look for him. She never heard from him again. Even years later, whenever the phone rang, she half hoped it was him. This type of story is common. People with both fixed and growth mindsets have faced similar rejections. Almost everyone, at some point, has fallen in love and been hurt. But what sets them apart is how they handle it afterward. We asked people to reflect on their experiences. What did this rejection mean to you? How did you process it? What were you hoping for? For people with a fixed mindset, rejection often feels like a personal judgment. They feel labeled and think of themselves as unlovable. This mindset leads them to hold onto anger and bitterness. One woman, Lydia, recalled her intense desire for revenge after being hurt. If I could get back at him, I would. He deserves it. For many with the fixed mindset, revenge becomes a priority. One man admitted, she took my worth with her when she left. I think about making her pay every day. Another friend, speaking about her divorce, said, if I had to choose between my happiness and his misery, I'd choose his misery. This revenge mentality is typical of the fixed mindset. In contrast, people with a growth mindset respond to rejection differently. Though they may still feel deeply hurt, their approach focuses on understanding, healing, and moving forward. They often look for lessons in the experience. One man explained, I learned the importance of communication. I used to think love could overcome everything, but now I realize it needs more than that. Another person explained that their heartbreak taught them valuable insights into what they truly need in a relationship. Growth-minded individuals focus on forgiveness and self-peace. As one woman put it, I had to forgive for my own peace of mind. He hurt me, but I have a whole life ahead of me and I wasn't going to live it stuck in the past. A great example of the growth mindset comes from my cousin Kathy. After a long 23-year marriage, her husband left her. Not long after, Kathy suffered an injury that left her housebound. She could have wallowed in despair, but instead she decided, I won't sit here feeling sorry for myself. She went to a dance, injured leg and all, and there she met her future husband. Then there's the story of Nicole Contos, who had her wedding day turned upside down. Nicole had planned a dream wedding, complete with a beautiful dress and a Rolls Royce. But at the last moment, her groom called it off. Nicole could have let the incident define her and make her feel humiliated. Instead, she chose to embrace her pain with strength. She changed into a black dress and attended the reception, dancing to "I Will Survive." Her response was seen as an act of courage, and it became a powerful example of resilience. Later, Nicole found love again and remarried in the same church, wearing the same wedding dress. When asked if she was scared, she confidently replied, "I knew he was going to be there." The way people with the fixed mindset react to rejection often makes them feel as though their worth is permanently damaged. This mindset can lead to feelings of resentment and thoughts of retaliation, which can escalate to extreme behaviors like bullying or even violence. On the other hand, relationships can be tricky to navigate, especially since there is no universally agreed upon method for measuring social skills. Daniel Goleman's Emotional Intelligence book brought to light the importance of emotional and social skills, revealing how some people are able to build meaningful, lasting relationships while others struggle. And mindsets play a big role in this. Mindsets and falling in love. When it comes to relationships, those with a fixed mindset have a rigid view. They believe that their personal traits, their partner's traits, and even the relationship itself are fixed. If there's an issue, it's seen as a fatal flaw rather than something that can be worked through. In this mindset, people expect relationships to be perfect, as if it were a fairy tale where everything falls into place automatically. On the contrary, those with a growth mindset see relationships as fluid and capable of growth. They believe that with effort and communication, both partners and the relationship itself can evolve and improve over time. The key difference lies in their expectations. People with a fixed mindset expect instant, effortless compatibility, while growth-minded individuals understand that challenges and differences will naturally arise, and overcoming them is part of the process. For instance, Charlene met Max, a musician, and they quickly felt a deep connection. But over time, Max's moodiness began to affect their relationship. Instead of seeing this as a sign that the relationship was doomed, Charlene's friends encouraged them to work on it. But both Max and Charlene had the belief that if it were the right relationship, everything would just work. Eventually, this belief caused them to break up. In a growth mindset relationship, however, partners understand that challenges like moodiness or miscommunication are not deal breakers. Relationships take effort, and growth is part of the process. Mind reading and miscommunication. An interesting aspect of the fixed mindset in relationships is the belief in mind reading. People in this mindset often expect their partner to automatically know what they need, think, and feel. This can lead to communication breakdowns. For example, when Tom told Lucy that he felt an imbalance in their relationship, Lucy assumed he meant he wasn't as invested. However, after a conversation, she realized he simply wanted to move the relationship to a deeper level. Similarly, a personal anecdote highlights how easy it is to misinterpret what someone says. My husband once said, "I need more space," and I panicked, thinking the relationship was in trouble. But after asking him, I found out he just wanted a little physical space while we were sitting together. The importance of communication. Couples with a fixed mindset may also believe they should agree on everything, even down to the smallest details. This assumption can make it hard to address differing opinions. For example, Michael and Robin, newlyweds, fought about their living situation. Michael envisioned a bohemian lifestyle in Greenwich Village, while Robin assumed they would settle down in a more suburban-style house. They felt betrayed, and the disagreement marked the beginning of further communication problems. Moreover, many people assume traditional roles and entitlements within a relationship. For instance, one husband might believe that washing dishes is his wife's responsibility, leading to resentment if that expectation is not met. The role of effort in relationships. Ultimately, a relationship cannot thrive without effort. The idea that love should come effortlessly is often what leads to relationships becoming stagnant. Success in love doesn't happen magically. It requires open communication, understanding, and compromise. It's the people who recognize this and are willing to put in the work who build lasting, healthy relationships. The bottom line is, relationships are about growth. They demand effort, communication, and a willingness to work through obstacles. If both partners are committed to that, they can create a relationship that will last, even if it requires effort and sacrifice. In relationships, a common issue for individuals with a fixed mindset is that they tend to view problems as signs of deep flaws, both in themselves and in their partners. This mindset can be incredibly damaging, as it leads to the assumption that challenges in relationships are a reflection of something fundamentally wrong or irreparable. It's important to note that just as achieving great things in life often involves overcoming setbacks, successful relationships also encounter their fair share of problems and conflicts. The difference lies in how these issues are approached. For individuals with a fixed mindset, when problems arise in a relationship, they often assign blame, sometimes to themselves but more often to their partner. They tend to attribute these issues to unchangeable traits, seeing their partner's imperfections as permanent and insurmountable. This mindset creates frustration and leads to feelings of contempt. The belief that these flaws are fixed makes the situation feel hopeless, and resolving the issue seems impossible. In contrast, those with a growth mindset are more likely to view imperfections as opportunities for improvement. They can see that problems, even in relationships, can be worked through and don't define the overall health of the partnership. Take, for example, the story of Yvonne and her husband, Charlie. While Yvonne's behavior raised suspicions that she might be having an affair, she was getting mysterious phone calls, often late, and distracted. Charlie, instead of confronting the reality, chose to dismiss it as just a phase. He avoided the discomfort of confronting the problem because, in the fixed mindset, acknowledging the issue would imply that either Yvonne was a bad person, he was somehow responsible for her actions, or their relationship was beyond repair. However, a growth mindset would lead him to view the situation differently. He could look at the problem as something that could be addressed, either by having a conversation or seeking counseling. This perspective gives the relationship a chance for growth and resolution. A similar issue is seen in Penelope's approach to relationships. She repeatedly falls head over heels for a man, only to break up when minor issues arise, such as a bad gift or poor manners. These, in her eyes, are deal breakers. But most of these issues aren't permanent flaws. They could be worked through with open communication. It's important to recognize that no one is perfect, and every relationship involves choosing the set of problems that come with a partner. In another example, Brenda and Jack's story illustrates the importance of communication. Brenda would come home from work and tell long, detailed stories about her day, thinking she was sharing her excitement. Jack, however, found these stories frustrating and dull. Both partners, rather than discussing the issue, blamed each other's personalities. Brenda thought Jack was selfish, and Jack thought Brenda was boring. In reality, the issue wasn't a personality flaw, but a simple miscommunication. A more constructive approach would have been for Jack to express how he felt and for Brenda to adjust her storytelling. This shift in perspective can solve problems without causing resentment. Sometimes couples need to avoid seeing each other's flaws through the lens of the fixed mindset. Take Ted and Karen's relationship, for example. Initially, they were drawn to each other's differences, but over time, Ted began seeing Karen as irresponsible while Karen saw Ted as overly judgmental. Their relationship almost ended because they were caught in a cycle of blaming each other. However, they learned that the problem wasn't in their personalities but in how they responded to each other. By changing their responses and focusing on actions rather than labels, they were able to rebuild their relationship. Even in extreme cases, such as Bill and Hillary Clinton's marriage, a fixed mindset can be detrimental. When Bill's infidelity became public, Hillary had to decide whether she could forgive him. A fixed mindset would have made forgiveness nearly impossible, but with a growth mindset, she was able to see Bill's behavior as a result of deeper personal issues rather than a permanent flaw. Through counseling, Bill worked on understanding his own behavior, and Hillary was able to forgive him not because she overlooked his mistakes, but because she saw that he was genuinely committed to change. This brings us to the idea of competition in relationships. In the fixed mindset, there's a constant need to prove oneself as the more capable or more successful partner. This can turn relationships into a battleground. For instance, Susan's boyfriend Martin struggled with feelings of inadequacy when he realized that Susan received more attention and admiration than he did despite his own success. This insecurity caused tension between them. Similarly, Cynthia's relationship suffered because she continually sought to outshine her partners, leaving them feeling overshadowed and ultimately leading to breakups. Healthy relationships require both partners to support each other's success without feeling threatened or competitive. Lastly, developing a relationship requires mutual support and growth. Laura and James are a perfect example. Laura could be self-centered and defensive, but James never took it personally. Instead of escalating conflicts, he helped her calm down and work through her issues. In return, Laura supported James in his entrepreneurial endeavors and he helped her pursue her dream of writing children's books. In a relationship grounded in the growth mindset, both partners help each other develop and achieve their individual goals, which strengthens the bond between them. Ultimately, the key to overcoming relationship difficulties is to embrace a growth mindset. This means seeing problems as opportunities to grow and develop both individually and as a couple. By choosing to focus on solutions rather than blame, partners can navigate challenges and create a deeper, more resilient connection. Friendship, growth, validation, and the impact of mindsets. Friendships, much like partnerships, serve as platforms for mutual growth and self-validation. Both aspects are key in any healthy relationship. True friends provide wisdom and courage to make decisions that foster growth while also offering reassurance in moments of self-doubt. At times, we all need to hear validation about our worth, such as when we make tough decisions like ending a relationship or facing a difficult situation like failing an exam. In these moments, friends can give us reassurance, reminding us of our inherent goodness or guiding us toward constructive actions. For example, when navigating a breakup, a friend might affirm that the decision was right if the other person was not contributing to the relationship. Similarly, when facing failure, a friend can help us explore what went wrong and how we can improve. However, like in any relationship, the balance of validation and growth can tip in unhealthy ways. A study by Sherry Levy highlights an interesting dynamic. Adolescent boys' self-esteem often rose when they endorsed negative stereotypes about girls, such as assuming girls are worse at math. This behavior mirrors how some individuals in friendships might feel better about themselves by undermining others. The mindset here seems to be, I feel superior if others are diminished. A close friend once shared with me how she tolerated certain behaviors from people who did not treat her with full respect. Despite their flaws, she valued these friendships for their virtues. However, one thing she could not tolerate was being made to feel bad about herself. She emphasized that some people, though brilliant and charming, subtly diminish others to boost their own self-worth. The dynamic of friendship can sometimes involve these unspoken exchanges of validation where individuals might use others to confirm their own value. This behavior can be subtle and even unconscious. For example, I once realized that I had used a pleasant conversation with a successful businessman on a train purely for validation, showing no interest in him as a person, only as a mirror for my own perceived excellence. Another important aspect of friendship is the question, who is there for you in your moments of success? While it's easy to find support when things go wrong, genuine friends are those who rejoice in your triumphs as much as in your struggles. Success does not threaten their self-esteem, unlike those who may feel insecure about their own standing and might not celebrate your victories. Shyness, how mindsets affect social interactions. Shyness can be thought of as the flip side of seeking validation in friendships. Shy people often fear judgment and embarrassment in social settings, which can hold them back from forming connections. Shy individuals may experience physical symptoms like racing hearts, blushing, and avoiding eye contact when interacting with new people. Although these individuals might have wonderful personalities and qualities, their anxiety can prevent them from expressing these traits. Jennifer Beer's research sheds light on how mindsets influence shyness. She found that people with a fixed mindset were more likely to be shy. They were preoccupied with judgment and anxious about making mistakes. However, people with a growth mindset, even when shy, navigated social situations more smoothly. Initially, both shy individuals, whether fixed or growth-minded, appeared nervous, but over time, those with a growth mindset adapted, became more social, and enjoyed the interactions. On the other hand, those with a fixed mindset remained nervous and socially awkward, avoiding eye contact and retreating into their anxiety. For shy individuals with a growth mindset, social situations are seen as challenges to be embraced, even if they feel anxious. They use their discomfort as an opportunity to grow. However, those with a fixed mindset avoid social situations altogether or freeze when interacting, focusing on their fear of judgment instead of forming connections. Bullying, the role of mindsets in aggression and victimization. Rejection and bullying are significant aspects of how mindsets shape our experiences. Bullying often arises from a need to establish dominance and superiority, with the bullies seeking to boost their own self-esteem by belittling others. The dynamics of bullying are often linked to fixed mindset thinking, where individuals view others as either superior or inferior. Bullies gain social status by putting others down, and this behavior can be driven by an insecure need to feel better about themselves. For example, in the case of the infamous Columbine shooting, both Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold had been victims of relentless bullying. They were ridiculed and tormented by their peers, often for being different or vulnerable, which fueled their bitterness and desire for revenge. Studies reveal that victims of bullying, especially those with a fixed mindset, internalize these judgments. They may come to believe that they are inferior and that the bullying is a reflection of their worth. This can lead to feelings of anger and a desire for revenge. Interestingly, victims with a growth mindset view bullying as a problem of the bullies, not a reflection of their own worth. They may see the bullies' actions as stemming from their own insecurities or a desire for status. One experiment conducted with 8th grade students who had been bullied showed that those with a fixed mindset were more likely to seek violent revenge, fantasizing about harming their bullies. In contrast, those with a growth mindset were more likely to try to understand the bullies' motivations or even seek to help them become better people. The ability to see bullying as a reflection of the bullies' issues rather than their own self-worth is a critical difference between the fixed and growth mindset. People who adopt a growth mindset are more likely to focus on personal growth and seek positive solutions, even in the face of adversity. Brooks Brown, a classmate of the Columbine shooters, provides a powerful example of embracing a growth mindset despite experiencing severe bullying. Brown worked to reform his own mindset and chose to believe that people, even those like Harris and Klebold, have the potential to change. His efforts highlight the importance of rejecting the fixed mindset and instead embracing a mindset that fosters understanding, empathy, and growth. Addressing bullying, a shift in school mindsets. Children often lack the ability to stop bullies on their own, especially when those bullies have a group of followers backing them up. However, schools hold the power to make a significant difference by changing the overall culture and mindset within their walls. Many schools inadvertently foster a fixed mindset, where it's accepted that certain students are superior and have the right to pick on others. The idea that some students are misfits and can't be helped is often embraced. This mindset can lead to increased bullying and marginalization of students who don't fit the traditional mold. However, some schools have successfully reduced bullying by shifting the culture to one of collaboration and self-improvement rather than judgment. Stan Davis, a therapist and consultant who works with schools, has developed an anti-bullying program that has proven effective. The program is based on the principles developed by Dan Alwius, a Norwegian researcher, and aims to help bullies change their behavior, support victims, and encourage bystanders to intervene. Davis's program has led to impressive results, including a 93% reduction in physical bullying and a 53% decrease in teasing. One notable success story from Davis's program involves a third-grade student named Darla. Darla, who was overweight, socially awkward, and often labeled a crybaby, became the target of daily bullying from nearly half of her class. Years later, thanks to the program, the bullying had stopped. Darla developed better social skills, made friends, and gained confidence. When she transitioned to middle school, her former classmates, some of whom had previously been her bullies, stepped in to protect her from further harassment. Davis's approach with bullies is also transformative. Instead of labeling bullies as bad people, he focuses on guiding them toward positive behavior without criticizing their character. For example, he might say, "I noticed that you've been staying out of fights. That shows me you're making an effort to get along with others." This type of feedback reinforces the concept of a growth mindset, helping the bullies understand that they can improve their behavior over time. The positive effects of Davis's approach were so significant that he shared his experiences with Dr. Carol Dweck, a researcher known for her work on the growth mindset. In a letter to Dr. Dweck, Davis explained how her research had changed the way he worked with students and how he was seeing positive results from using growth-oriented language and feedback. Chaim Jinot, a well-known child psychologist, also demonstrates how teachers can guide bullies away from judgment and toward compassion. In one example, a teacher writes a thoughtful letter to a bully asking for their advice on how to help another student who is being ostracized. The teacher refrains from labeling the student as bad and instead appeals to their leadership qualities, showing respect and encouraging self-reflection. In a New York Times article discussing bullying, two infamous figures, Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold, were referred to as misfit teenagers. However, it's important to note that the bullies often don't fit the traditional misfit mold. In many cases, they define and dominate the school culture, reinforcing the harmful belief that some people are entitled to mistreat others. The idea that anyone is entitled to bully or harm others is fundamentally unhealthy. Davis highlights that as a society we have rejected the notion that people are entitled to discriminate against or harm specific groups, such as racial minorities or women. So why do we allow the idea that children can bully one another? By accepting this behavior, we not only harm the victims but also fail to give the bullies the opportunity to change and grow. By fostering a growth mindset in schools, we can help both the victims and the bullies. This mindset encourages the belief that everyone has the capacity to change, learn, and improve. Reflecting on your own mindset. Consider your own experiences and mindset in various situations. For example, when you face rejection, do you hold on to bitterness and anger, or do you try to learn from the experience and move forward with a sense of hope? Reflect on the worst rejection you've ever faced and ask yourself, what lessons did it teach you? Can you forgive the person involved and wish them well? Similarly, consider your ideal relationship. Does it involve flawless harmony and no disagreements? Or do you recognize that challenges are inevitable in any relationship and they provide an opportunity to deepen understanding and strengthen the bond? Lastly, if you're someone who tends to blame others, think about how this affects your relationships. Strive to move beyond a blame-oriented mindset, focusing instead on solutions and personal growth. This shift can create healthier and more constructive interactions with those around you. Even if you're shy, adopting a growth mindset can help. Instead of seeing social situations as judgmental, view them as opportunities to learn and connect. With practice and patience, you can improve your social skills and make meaningful connections. Chapter 7. Where do mindsets come from? Parents, teachers, and coaches. No parent ever intentionally tries to undermine their child's growth or limit their potential. Most parents aim to do everything they can to help their children succeed. But ironically, some well-meaning actions can backfire. The lessons we teach and the praise we give can unintentionally send the wrong message to kids, shaping their mindset in ways we don't always expect. Every word, every action from parents, teachers, and coaches sends a signal to children, athletes, or students about how they should think about themselves. These messages can either encourage a fixed mindset, suggesting that abilities are static, or a growth mindset where effort and development are valued. Children are incredibly sensitive to these messages and they care deeply about how they're being perceived. A great example of this comes from Chaim Janot, a famous child psychologist. He shared a story about a young boy named Bruce who was starting kindergarten. On his first day, Bruce looked at the paintings on the wall and called them ugly. His mother quickly corrected him, but the teacher understood Bruce's real concern. He wanted to know if someone who didn't paint well would be judged. The teacher reassured him that it was fine to paint however he liked and that no one would judge him for his artwork. This simple, non-judgmental approach helped Bruce feel accepted. It's a reminder that children are constantly processing messages about who they are and how they fit into the world. Even as adults, we remain sensitive to these kinds of messages. For example, I once had an emotional reaction to the way I was treated in different countries. In France, when people were kind to me, I felt like I had passed some kind of test. But in Italy, kindness didn't feel like a test. It was just a natural part of the culture. This made me realize how different environments can either promote or discourage growth by the messages they send. The messages parents and teachers send about success and failure. When it comes to success, many well-intentioned parents and teachers praise their children for being smart or naturally talented. However, this kind of praise can subtly reinforce a fixed mindset. Children who hear these messages might believe that if they don't succeed immediately, they must not be smart or talented, which can undermine their motivation and cause them to avoid challenges. For example, phrases like, "You're so smart," or "You're the next Picasso," seem like harmless compliments. But for children, these words can create pressure to always appear smart or perfect. If they encounter difficulty, they may feel like failures and avoid challenging tasks altogether. Research has shown that praising intelligence can actually hurt a child's motivation and performance in the long run. When children are praised for being smart, they become more focused on looking smart rather than actually learning and growing. When faced with obstacles or setbacks, their confidence crumbles because they believe intelligence is something fixed and not something that can be developed. One mother shared her experience with me, noting how her son, who scored in the top percentile on standardized tests, became afraid to take on more difficult tasks. He feared that if he failed, it would mean he wasn't smart. This type of praise only reinforces the idea that intelligence is something you either have or you don't, which leads to anxiety when faced with challenges. Even I've fallen into the trap of praising intelligence. Once, my husband solved a difficult problem, and before I could stop myself, I blurted out, "You're brilliant." He understood what I meant and gently reminded me that I meant to praise his effort. This was a wake-up call for me about how easy it is to unintentionally promote a fixed mindset. Shifting the focus to effort and process. The real solution lies in focusing praise on effort and process rather than inherent talent or intelligence. Praise the effort, persistence, strategies, and hard work a child puts in. These are the qualities that lead to growth and improvement. Instead of saying, "You're so smart," we can say things like, "I can see how hard you worked to get this result. Your effort really paid off. You used so many different strategies to solve that problem. Great thinking. You kept going even when the work got tough. That's real perseverance." This type of feedback encourages children to value the process of learning, which helps them to keep growing even when they face setbacks. It also helps them to see that challenges are opportunities to improve rather than tests of their abilities. One of my students shared a wonderful example. When her younger sister was excited about getting an A on a test, she didn't focus on the grade itself. Instead, she asked questions that helped her sister reflect on the effort she put into studying and how she had improved compared to the previous year. This approach promotes a growth mindset, showing that progress comes from sustained effort, not from an innate ability to be smart. How to praise in a way that promotes a growth mindset. It's not that we shouldn't praise our children when they succeed, it's just important to praise the right things. Instead of focusing on outcomes like grades or natural talent, focus on what they did to achieve that outcome. For example, "I really admire how you stuck with that tough project. It must feel great to see your hard work come together. You tackled that difficult math problem step by step. That's impressive. Your drawing is so detailed and thoughtful. It's clear that you put a lot of time and care into it." What if a child works hard but doesn't succeed? Instead of offering empty praise, focus on the effort and the learning that took place. You might say, "You worked really hard on this and I'm proud of your persistence. Let's go over it together and see what you can learn for next time. Everyone has different strengths. You've made great progress and with continued effort you'll get even better." The importance of positive reinforcement in growth mindset. Ultimately, children need to hear messages that emphasize their potential for growth. If parents, teachers, and coaches model a growth mindset by praising effort and progress, they help children build resilience and a love for learning. They also show that mistakes and challenges are part of the learning process, not evidence of failure. When children hear us praise their efforts and strategies, they're more likely to embrace challenges, learn from their mistakes, and develop a strong sense of confidence that is based on growth, not fixed abilities. In summary, the way we praise children has a powerful impact on the mindsets they develop. It's important to focus on the process, the hard work, persistence, and strategies rather than talent or intelligence. This promotes a growth mindset, encouraging children to see themselves as capable of continuous development. With the right encouragement, children can embrace challenges, overcome obstacles, and grow into confident, resilient learners. Reassuring children and teaching through constructive feedback. When it comes to preparing children for a test or performance, it's crucial to understand that simply reassuring them about their intelligence or talents can sometimes backfire. Instead of alleviating anxiety, it may heighten the pressure and make them more fearful of failure. Let's explore how to effectively support children in these situations, focusing on reassurance that fosters resilience rather than stress. Helping children overcome test anxiety. Take Christina, a bright high school student who faced significant test anxiety. Despite consistently studying and mastering the material, she would panic during exams, often blanking out and underperforming. This cycle caused her grades to suffer, and she felt that her parents, teachers, and peers expected more from her. On the night before a test, her parents tried to console her, saying things like, "We know how smart you are. You've got this. While well-meaning, this type of reassurance might have actually increased the pressure on Christina to perform perfectly. Instead, her parents could have reassured her in a different way. We understand how stressful it can feel to be tested on what you know, and we want you to know that we care more about your learning than the results of any single test. We are proud of your dedication and effort in mastering the material. By offering this type of reassurance, children can feel supported without the added fear of failure. Navigating failure, what to say and what to avoid. When a child experiences failure, parents often feel the need to protect them from feeling bad. However, overly protecting children from failure can hinder their growth and development. Let's look at a situation with Elizabeth, a 9-year-old gymnast, to illustrate how to handle failure messages effectively. At her first gymnastics meet, Elizabeth was confident but ended up not winning any ribbons. She was devastated. As her parents, what would be the most constructive approach to helping her? Here are 5 possible reactions. 1. Telling her she was the best. While this might make her feel good temporarily, it doesn't reflect reality and offers no guidance for improvement. 2. Blaming others, e.g., the judges. This response avoids addressing the issue at hand and doesn't help Elizabeth learn from her performance. 3. Reassuring her that it doesn't matter. This teaches her to devalue things she cares about simply because they didn't go well initially. 4. Telling her she has the ability. This can be misleading. If ability were all that mattered, why didn't she win? 5. Honest feedback about her performance. This is the most valuable response. Elizabeth's father told her, "I know this is disappointing, but you haven't earned it yet. Some of the girls have been doing this longer and worked harder. If you really want to succeed in this, you need to put in more effort." This approach is realistic and teaches her to persevere through challenges. By offering honest, constructive feedback, Elizabeth's father helped her understand that success isn't just about talent, it's about effort and perseverance. The next time she competed, Elizabeth's dedication paid off and she won multiple ribbons and the overall championship. The importance of constructive criticism. Constructive criticism is about offering helpful feedback that focuses on improvement. However, many parents mistakenly offer feedback that is judgmental or critical of their child's character. For example, when Billy rushed through his homework, his father criticized him harshly. "Can't you ever get it right? Are you dense or irresponsible?" This kind of feedback doesn't guide Billy toward improvement, it undermines his confidence. Instead, Billy's father could have expressed his frustration in a more constructive way. "Son, I'm frustrated because you didn't complete the assignment thoroughly. How do you think you can finish this properly? Or is there something you didn't understand? I'm happy to help." This type of feedback shows that the problem is with the task, not Billy's intelligence or character. How children interpret feedback. Children with a fixed mindset often interpret feedback as a judgment of their intelligence. They might feel that their parents are evaluating them based on their performance rather than supporting their learning process. On the other hand, children with a growth mindset interpret feedback as an opportunity for learning and improvement. For example, when children with a growth mindset receive help with schoolwork, they understand that their parents want to ensure they are learning, not simply judging their abilities. Discipline as an opportunity for teaching. Many parents believe that discipline is about punishing children when they misbehave, but a growth mindset sees discipline as an opportunity for teaching. When a child makes a mistake, instead of harshly judging them, parents can help them learn from the situation. For instance, when Alyssa asked her parents for permission to host a cocktail party with her friends, they could have been outraged and dismissed the request. Instead, they engaged her in a thoughtful conversation, discussing the reasons behind her request and guiding her through the decision-making process. This approach doesn't mean that parents should indulge their children or avoid setting boundaries. Instead, it means guiding children with respect and teaching them how to navigate life's challenges in a thoughtful way. Teaching through mistakes. Children learn best when mistakes are treated as opportunities to grow. A mother with a baby who struggled to nurse didn't view her baby's difficulties as a sign of failure. Instead, she saw it as a learning experience for both herself and her baby, reinforcing the importance of patience and persistence. By maintaining this growth mindset, she could better support her baby's development and respond more effectively to future challenges. The legacy of messages we send. The messages parents send through their actions and words are powerful and long-lasting. Even young children begin to internalize these messages and they carry them forward. When children experience failure or disappointment, they can either view these moments as learning opportunities or as judgments of their worth. Parents with a growth mindset teach their children that mistakes are part of the learning process, while those with a fixed mindset might unintentionally send messages of judgment and failure. In conclusion, supporting children through challenges and failures requires shifting from a focus on judgment to a focus on learning. When we offer constructive feedback, help children reflect on their experiences, and encourage them to improve, we teach them valuable skills for success, both in school and in life. Mindsets and their impact on success and failure, a story of parents, teachers, and students. Parents naturally want the best for their children. However, in their pursuit of excellence, sometimes they unintentionally place their children in harmful situations. As the director of undergraduate studies at Columbia University, I encountered numerous students grappling with this dilemma. One such case involved a student named Sandy, a bright individual who almost didn't make it through her academic journey. Sandy came to me just a week before graduation requesting a change of major to psychology. Upon reviewing her academic record, I saw a pattern of A+ grades alongside failing marks. This stark contrast begged the question, what was happening? Sandy's parents had raised her with a singular ambition to get into Harvard. Their rigid, fixed mindset meant that her education was never about learning or pursuing her passions. It was about proving her worth and validating their aspirations through the prestige of Harvard. When she didn't get in, the crushing blow sent Sandy into a deep depression. Her academic performance reflected this emotional turmoil. She would sometimes excel and other times fail miserably. I realized that if I didn't intervene, Sandy might not graduate, and the thought of facing her parents in such a scenario was overwhelming. Fortunately, I was able to guide her through the necessary steps to earn her degree, but the deeper issue remained. It's heartbreaking to see a bright young person like Sandy burdened by such high expectations, detached from the true joy of learning and growth. This scenario is sadly all too common. Parents often desire success for their children, but the way they go about it can be damaging. Sandy's parents, for example, placed their own ambitions ahead of Sandy's personal growth and happiness. This led to the devastating belief that she was only valuable if she met their expectations, which were fixed and unyielding. Another case that stands out is Mark's story. Mark was an exceptionally talented math student eager to attend Stuyvesant High School, renowned for its math and science curriculum. Stuyvesant would have allowed Mark to hone his talents, with access to top-tier math courses and even the opportunity to take college-level courses. However, Mark's parents wouldn't let him go, fearing it would jeopardize his chances of getting into Harvard. They pressured him into attending a different high school, one that didn't offer the same resources or opportunities for growth, all for the sake of Harvard's prestigious name. This mindset that success is only valid if it aligns with specific, predetermined outcomes places immense pressure on children. It sends a message, we'll only love and respect you if you succeed on our terms. This notion can lead to a sense of inadequacy and a fear of failure, leaving children feeling like they can't live up to their parents' ideals. Even high-profile athletes like John McEnroe experienced the weight of such parental expectations. McEnroe's father placed immense pressure on him to succeed in tennis, despite his son expressing discomfort with the constant scrutiny. While McEnroe delivered the success his father sought, he later admitted that he never truly enjoyed the sport the way many other athletes did. It's clear that when parents focus solely on success and achievement, the child's passion and joy can be lost in the process. On the other hand, there are examples of parents who fostered their children's growth in a healthier way. Tiger Woods' father, while ambitious, emphasized growth and learning over raw talent. He supported Tiger's love of golf and prioritized his development as a person, not just as a player. Tiger himself later spoke about how his parents had taught him to give of himself, not just in golf, but in every aspect of life. This approach helped Tiger grow into a well-rounded individual who was driven by his passions rather than external pressure. Similarly, renowned violin teacher Dorothy DeLay worked with parents who had different views on their children's education. Some parents, obsessed with showcasing their child's talent, would push their kids too hard, forcing them to memorize complex pieces like Beethoven's Violin Concerto at an early age. However, these children often lacked the emotional and musical depth required to truly appreciate the music they were playing. In contrast, Delay worked with students like Yura Lee, whose mother approached her lessons with a calm and nurturing demeanor. Yura thrived under this kind of guidance, developing not only as a violinist but as a person who genuinely enjoyed her music. Delay's approach was rooted in fostering long-term growth, not in creating a facade of instant success. Parents often have ideals and goals for their children, and these can be beneficial when they encourage growth. However, when these ideals become rigid and unattainable, they can harm children's development. For example, some college students with a fixed mindset describe their ideal of success as something based solely on innate talent. This ideal is not something one can strive for, it is either something you have or you don't. These students felt demoralized by these unattainable ideals, which only led to procrastination, stress, and a sense of failure. In contrast, students with a growth mindset held ideals that were attainable through effort and learning. They believed that success was not about inherent talent but about continuously expanding one's knowledge and skills. These students viewed challenges as opportunities for growth, not as threats to their worth. They worked towards their ideals, understanding that mistakes were part of the learning process. When parents impose fixed mindset ideals on their children, they create an environment where mistakes are not allowed and failure is seen as a reflection of worth. This often leads to rebellious behavior or children dropping out of school as they struggle to meet expectations that are unrealistic. On the other hand, when parents foster a growth mindset, they provide their children with room to develop and make mistakes. They help their children build resilience and the skills to overcome challenges, ultimately leading to personal fulfillment and success. Teachers, too, play a significant role in shaping students' mindsets. Some educators believe that lowering standards will help boost students' self-esteem and achievement. However, this approach often leads to a lack of preparation and entitlement, where students expect praise without earning it. Instead, great teachers who believe in the growth of intellect and talent set high standards and provide students with the tools they need to meet them. Teachers like Marva Collins and Ray Fisquith exemplify this growth-oriented approach. Collins worked with underprivileged students in Chicago, many of whom had been rejected by the traditional school system. Her classroom was a place where students were challenged to grow, and they thrived in an environment that emphasized effort, learning, and perseverance. Fisquith taught second graders in Los Angeles, helping them see their own progress and encouraging them to work hard to overcome their challenges. At the Juilliard School of Music, where only the most talented students are admitted, the mindset can be even more intense. Yet, violin teacher Dorothy DeLay, who worked with virtuosos like Itzhak Perlman and Midori, believed that talent could be cultivated. She was committed to helping every student grow, no matter their starting point. Her teaching philosophy was rooted in patience, effort, and belief in the potential of each student, no matter how small the initial signs of talent might be. Whether it's in the classroom or at home, the mindset that parents and teachers instill in children plays a crucial role in their development. By fostering a growth mindset, one that values effort, resilience, and learning, children can develop into individuals who are capable of achieving their full potential regardless of the challenges they may face along the way. High standards and a supportive environment. Exceptional teachers set the bar high for every student, not just those already excelling. Marva Collins, for instance, introduced students to advanced vocabulary and concepts far beyond their current level. From the very first day, she created an environment filled with genuine warmth and dedication. Her message was clear: even if you don't believe in yourself, I already believe in you. While it's not essential for educators to love every student, it is critical that they care deeply about each one's progress. Teachers with a fixed mindset tend to label students early on, deciding who's smart and who's not based on initial performance. They often give up on the latter, believing intelligence is static. As a result, they don't push for growth or change. This mindset is often influenced by stereotypes, leading to unconscious decisions about who can and can't succeed before a student even sets foot in the classroom. Raising the bar with heart. Benjamin Bloom's research into elite performers, pianists, mathematicians, athletes, and more revealed a common thread. Their first mentors were not judgmental but warm and encouraging. These mentors didn't lower expectations. Instead, they built trust and commitment, helping students develop through teaching, not judging. Marva Collins and Ray Fisquith are shining examples of educators who demanded greatness while fostering deep emotional support. Collins, for example, expected all 4-year-olds in her school to be reading by December, and they were. Children as young as 3 used high school vocabulary books. 7-year-olds read the Wall Street Journal. Older students tackled texts like The Republic, Animal Farm, The Canterbury Tales, and Shakespeare. Yes, even the so-called troubled kids adored Shakespeare. Asquith, too, held his students to rigorous standards. His 5th graders read To Kill a Mockingbird, Of Mice and Men, and more. His 6th graders passed algebra tests that challenged even high schoolers. He didn't settle for small gains. He rejected the idea of celebrating mediocrity. If students were behind, he told them the truth and laid out a clear path to catch up. Dorothy DeLay, another extraordinary teacher, had a similar balance of challenge and support. One of her students explained it beautifully. She had a way of helping you reach your full potential while making you feel deeply cared for. Hard work is the secret ingredient. Of course, setting high standards and being kind isn't enough. Outstanding teachers also show students how to meet those standards. Marva Collins didn't just assign Macbeth. Her class analyzed every line together. Asquith spent hours planning reading passages tailored to each student's ability and confidence. He often held sessions before and after school, and even during vacations. His motto, "There are no shortcuts." Collins agreed, telling her students, "I'm no miracle worker. I just love kids and work harder than most. And so will you." DeLay taught her students that talent wasn't magic. When one student doubted he could play a piece as fast as Itzhak Perlman, she didn't let him see the metronome until he had reached the tempo. She knew that seeing the number would have discouraged him. Another student, unsure about his tone, received praise for a single note. That moment helped him realize that if he could create beauty in one place, he could do it everywhere. The point is, great teachers don't hide the truth from students. They tell them exactly where they stand and how to close the gap. Collins once told a student, "You're in 6th grade, but your reading is at a 1st grade level. I'm telling you this so you know what needs to change." Then they got to work, reaching the unreachable. But what about students who seem not to care? Take Gary, a student who refused to do his work and destroyed assignments. Collins approached him not with punishment, but persistence. She asked him to choose. Was he going to use his life or throw it away? At first, Gary resisted. But when given a choice to call his mother and explain he didn't want to learn or stay and participate, he chose to stay. Over time, he transformed. He contributed thoughtful insights about Macbeth, even referencing Socrates. He became a passionate writer, crafting lines like, "While we sleep, ignorance takes over the world. Take your spell off us." When students believe they're being judged, they often stop trying. But when they understand that learning is for them, they start to try again. Beneath every "I don't care" is someone who actually does. The growth-minded teacher. What makes these teachers so devoted? Are they saints? Not really, they simply love learning. For them, teaching isn't just about helping students grow. It's also about growing themselves. Fixed-minded teachers often see themselves as finished products, merely there to transfer knowledge. But that approach gets dull fast. One professor once said, "Schools shouldn't just be for students to learn. Teachers should be learning too." Great teachers take this to heart. They see every class as an opportunity to learn something new, to grow alongside their students. Marva Collins told her students, "I don't know everything, I'm learning too." Similarly, Dorothy DeLay was described as someone not obsessed with teaching, but with learning. So are great teachers born or made? They start with one key belief, that everyone can grow, including themselves. They light a fire in students that says, "You can do this. Let's figure it out together." When coaches teach like teachers, coaches are teachers too. Their work plays out in stadiums and headlines. But mindset matters here as well. Some coaches inspire growth. Others, like Bobby Knight, are more complex. Knight deeply cared about his players' education and well-being. But he also demanded perfection, and his fear of failure often turned into harsh judgment. If a player made mistakes, he might be publicly ridiculed, even humiliated. He once berated a player with great potential for not living up to expectations in an extremely demeaning way. While Knight believed in players' potential, he had a fixed view of himself. Their performance reflected on him, and any loss felt like personal failure. He didn't examine his own approach when things went wrong, he just lashed out. Some players, like Steve Alford, managed to tune out the insults and focus on growth. But even he admitted the environment became so toxic he lost the joy of playing. Yes, Knight had championship wins, but his methods broke down players, drove some to transfer, and left others emotionally drained. Isaiah Thomas, his most famous protege, summed it up with conflicting feelings. Part of him wanted to hug Knight, and part of him, he said, wanted to shoot him. That's not the kind of impact a mentor should aim for. The Growth Mindset Coach in Action, a story of legendary leadership. Coach Wooden, a champion of growth. Coach John Wooden is widely considered one of the greatest basketball coaches of all time. Leading UCLA, he secured NCAA championships in 10 different years, including multiple undefeated seasons and an astonishing 88-game winning streak. While many know his record, fewer know where he started. When Coach Wooden first joined UCLA, it was far from the powerhouse it would later become. Interestingly, he had initially planned to take a job at the University of Minnesota. Due to a storm disrupting phone lines, a missed call from Minnesota led him to accept UCLA's offer instead. UCLA's facilities were poor. For 16 years, the team practiced in a dim, stuffy gym affectionately called the B.O. Barn, which they shared with wrestlers, gymnasts, and cheerleaders. Even home games were played at borrowed venues for over a decade. His first team was underwhelming, even shocking him with their lack of skill. Still, instead of walking away, Wooden leaned in. That same team, expected to finish last, ended up winning their division and reaching the playoffs the following season. The Wooden Way. Effort, improvement, and integrity. Coach Wooden believed in growth. He urged his players to strive for daily improvement. His motto was simple: be better today than you were yesterday. He didn't demand perfection or obsess over wins. What he did demand was full effort and preparation. For him, the real question wasn't did we win, but did we give our best effort? If the answer was yes, then, as he said, you may be outscored, but you will never lose. He didn't tolerate slacking either. If players weren't pushing themselves, practice ended early. To him, wasting a day was wasting potential. Equal respect for all players. Wooden treated all his players with equal dignity, whether they were stars or benchwarmers. He once recruited a player knowing he wouldn't see much game time behind Bill Walton but promised him a pro future if he trained hard. That player not only held his own against Walton in practice but also became Rookie of the Year in his pro league. Wooden didn't believe in retiring jersey numbers while he coached, even for legends like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. To him, the number was part of the team, not just a symbol of one person's greatness. More than a game, life lessons through basketball. John Wooden wasn't just a coach, he was a life mentor. He prioritized developing character, not just skills. His players became not only great athletes but also great people. Bill Walton once said that Coach Wooden's biggest gift was preparing them for life, not just for basketball. Another player, Fred Slaughter, offered a perfect example of the values Wooden instilled. After being benched during the national championship game, Slaughter approached his coach with maturity and grace, acknowledging the decision without resentment. That's the culture Wooden built. Pat Summitt, learning from loss. Legendary women's coach Pat Summitt of Tennessee started with a tougher, more controlling coaching style. Losses devastated her. But over time, she realized something powerful. Losing helped her and her players grow. She eventually came to fear success more than failure because success often leads to complacency. After one particularly rough season, Summitt and her Lady Vols hit rock bottom. But following a heart-to-heart team meeting and a crushing loss to Old Dominion, the team recommitted. They poured everything into the rest of the season and ended it as national champions. Her story proves that success can breed fixed mindsets, while setbacks, when embraced, create growth. The danger of the false growth mindset. Growth mindset is often misunderstood. Many people think it just means praising effort or being positive. But real growth mindset is about believing that abilities can be developed through learning, strategy, and persistence, and then helping others do the same. Here are common misconceptions. Mistake number 1. Thinking that being open-minded or nice is the same as having a growth mindset. It's not. Mistake number 2. Believing that praising effort alone is enough. Effort needs to be effective and combined with strategy and feedback. Mistake number 3. Telling kids you can do anything without giving them the tools, guidance, or support to get there. Growth mindset is not about blind optimism. It's about guiding progress through learning, practice, and the right support. How adults can truly model growth mindset. Even adults who believe in growth mindset sometimes fail to pass it on. Why? Because their actions don't reflect it. Kids don't just listen to words, they watch behavior. Praise wisely, focus on strategies and effort, not just traits like being smart. Treat setbacks as learning opportunities. Don't panic when kids fail. Show them how to grow from it. Teach for understanding, not memorization. Students learn best when teachers help them think deeply, not just cram for tests. One study showed that when math teachers focused on deep understanding and allowed students to revise their work, students developed more confidence in their ability to improve. Passing on the legacy. As parents, teachers, or coaches, we hold the key to others' growth. Our legacy is in how we help people reach their potential. Here's how to cultivate a true growth mindset. Monitor the messages you send. Are they about judgment or development? Replace empty praise with process-focused feedback. Celebrate progress, not just perfection. When mistakes happen, use them as stepping stones for learning. Maintain high expectations, but support kids in achieving them. Focus on expanding skills, not simply rewarding talent. Final thought. Growth mindset isn't just a concept. It's a way of life. Whether you're on the court, in the classroom, or at the dinner table, remember this. We're not here to judge fixed traits. We're here to help people grow. Chapter 8. Shifting Perspectives, Embracing the Growth Mindset. The belief that change is possible is at the core of the growth mindset, and one of the most rewarding aspects of studying this mindset is watching people truly transform. There's nothing more fulfilling than seeing someone unlock their potential and move toward goals that matter to them. This chapter shares stories of both young people and adults who learned how to embrace and develop their abilities and how anyone can do the same. How change really works. I remember switching schools in first grade. Everything felt new and overwhelming, the classroom, the students, even the schoolwork. The assignments seemed far more advanced than what I was used to. When the teacher asked us to write our names in the right place, I had no idea where that was, and I ended up crying. Every day brought something I didn't know how to do, and I felt completely lost. Looking back, I wonder why I didn't simply raise my hand and ask for help. But I wasn't used to seeing struggles as a part of learning. I saw them as signs that I wasn't good enough. Another memory comes to mind. I was supposed to meet a group of kids at the movies. I showed up just in time to see them walking away. Instead of calling out or running after them, I froze, silently clutching the money in my hand, watching them disappear. Why didn't I say something? Even though I used to imagine myself as brave and capable in my dreams, sometimes wearing a makeshift superhero cape, when it came to real-life situations, I hesitated. And I've met many children like that, intelligent, full of promise, yet held back by fear of failure or judgment. Often, they simply don't believe that effort can make a difference. This is the essence of the fixed mindset, the belief that abilities are set in stone. Even now, I sometimes feel that old fear or helplessness creeping in when something goes wrong. But that doesn't mean I haven't changed. Real change isn't like flipping a switch or replacing a broken part. It's more like gradually building strength. Over time, new beliefs grow and start to take the lead. The power of belief, fueling hope or feeding doubt. In the 1960s, psychiatrist Dweck discovered something pivotal. People's beliefs were often at the root of their emotional struggles. Before someone spiraled into anxiety or sadness, they'd often have an automatic negative thought, something like, "I'll never succeed," or "I'm not good enough." Dweck realized that by helping people recognize and challenge these thoughts, they could change how they felt. This approach became the foundation of cognitive therapy, one of the most effective methods in mental health. We all have an inner voice constantly interpreting events around us. But when this interpretation becomes extreme or skewed, it can lead to anxiety, self-doubt, or even arrogance. This is where mindset plays a huge role. How mindsets shape our inner dialogue. People with a fixed mindset tend to evaluate everything as a reflection of their worth. A setback might mean I'm not smart, while a win might mean I'm better than others. It becomes a game of proving oneself again and again. Those with a growth mindset, on the other hand, still pay attention to success and failure, but they see them through the lens of learning. They ask questions like, what can I take from this? Or how can I get better? Cognitive therapy helps people soften extreme self-judgments by examining the evidence. For example, a student who fails a test and thinks, I'm dumb, might be encouraged to reflect on times they've done well and to consider alternative reasons for the poor grade. This can help ease the pain, but it doesn't necessarily break the cycle of self-evaluation. It doesn't always shift them out of a fixed mindset. True mindset change involves rewiring that inner voice from one that constantly judges to one that encourages learning and resilience. What happens when people learn about growth mindset? Each year, I share these ideas with my college students, not just because it fits the course material, but because I know how much pressure they're under. Many of them tell me how learning about growth mindset changes their outlook on life. Maggie, for example, dreamed of being a writer but never pursued it seriously. She believed creativity was something you were born with, and she feared rejection would prove she wasn't a real writer. After learning about growth mindset, she enrolled in a writing class and started sharing her work. She realized that developing her skills was more important than proving she had talent. Jason, a student athlete, used to believe winning was all that mattered. Losing felt like failure. After hearing about growth mindset, he shifted his focus from proving himself to improving himself even during games. Tony, once proud of being a natural genius, struggled when things got harder. He had tied his identity to being effortlessly smart. When that changed, he hit a low point. Learning about mindset helped him understand that effort and strategy mattered just as much, if not more, than raw talent. These changes weren't magic, they still faced challenges. But they now had a new perspective, one where effort, learning, and resilience counted more than instant success. Bringing growth mindset into classrooms. Adolescence can be a rough time. Many students begin to disengage from school and learning. They often compare themselves to others and judge their worth based on how quickly they grasp new material. For students with a fixed mindset, school becomes a place of fear and avoidance. To help, we created a special workshop for students. It teaches them how the brain works and how learning literally helps it grow, just like exercising builds muscle. We explain that nobody is born dumb or smart. Abilities can be developed through practice and persistence. Students are fascinated to learn how brain connections strengthen with learning. They see images of how much a baby's brain changes in the early years and realize they, too, can keep building their minds. The workshop also includes study strategies and shows students how to apply a growth mindset to their schoolwork. One moment that really stayed with me came from Jimmy, a student who had been labeled as a lost cause. At the end of our first session, he looked up and asked with tears in his eyes, "You mean I don't have to be dumb?" That one insight changed everything for him. Suddenly, he saw his mind as something he could develop. He began working hard, asking for feedback, and even turning in assignments early for revision. His teacher, who didn't know which students were in the workshop, noticed the change right away. We also compared grades. The students who learned about growth mindset improved significantly in math, while those in a similar study skills-only workshop without mindset training did not. Even with equal attention and support, the difference was clear. Believing you can grow makes all the difference. Final thoughts. The freedom to grow. The workshop gave students something they didn't have before. The freedom to take charge of their learning. They no longer saw struggle as failure, but as part of the journey. When young people understand that their abilities aren't fixed, they become more willing to take risks, put in effort, and pursue meaningful goals. They stop living in fear of failure and start investing in their future. In the end, the growth mindset isn't just about school or work. It's about embracing the belief that we're all capable of change. And that belief, once planted, can grow into something powerful. Rephrased summary of branology and growth mindset concepts. The challenge with the original workshop. The original workshop we created to teach about the brain and learning was effective, but had one big problem. It needed a large team to deliver it. That meant it wasn't practical to scale up. Plus, teachers weren't really involved. even though they could play a key role in helping students apply what they learned. So, we took a new approach, transforming the workshop into a set of engaging, interactive online lessons called Brainology, guided by classroom teachers. Introducing Brainology. With the help of professionals in education, media, and neuroscience, we created a digital program featuring 2 animated characters, Chris and Dahlia, a pair of relatable 7th graders facing school challenges. Dahlia struggles with Spanish, Chris with math. They visit the quirky Dr. Cerebrus, a brain scientist who shows them how to take care of their brains and get the most out of learning. Through fun animations, interactive activities, and real student stories, the program teaches things like how the brain develops through learning, healthy habits that help brain performance, like good sleep and nutrition, effective study techniques, how to turn setbacks into growth opportunities, students' feedback. Students shared powerful feedback. Many said they now viewed their school struggles differently. One student said they started using their time better, studying daily and reviewing notes. Another wrote, "I now believe the more effort I put in, the more my brain grows." Some even imagined their neurons connecting as they studied. New vocabulary, new mindset. After completing Brainology, students started talking in terms of how memory works. They'd say things like, "I need to put this in my long-term memory," or, "That's only in my working memory right now." Teachers noticed a big shift. Students wanted to take notes, study more, and engage in ways that supported brain growth. Even teachers said they learned from it, realizing that every student is capable of learning, and that learning takes patience and time. The power and struggle of change. Learning about the brain and adopting a growth mindset can lead to real change. But that doesn't mean it's easy. Letting go of a fixed mindset, especially when it's part of your identity, can be unsettling. For example, when someone ties their self-worth to being the smart one or naturally talented, change can feel like losing a piece of themselves. Some people stick to a fixed mindset because it once helped them feel safe, valued, or loved, especially as children. Psychologists like Carl Rogers and Karen Horney explained how children might create idealized versions of themselves to gain approval. But over time, that perfect self becomes a limiting identity. Letting go of that identity can feel like giving up the one thing that made you special. How to embrace growth. Opening up to growth means accepting things that may have once felt threatening, criticism, effort, and failure. Even the author of this concept, who once tracked daily achievements to feel worthy, had to stop relying on mental counters of success. Some days had 0 wins, and that felt scary. But growth means shifting from counting victories to embracing the process of learning, mistakes and all. Real-life example, rejected but resilient. Imagine someone applied to their dream grad school and was rejected. The fixed mindset might say, "I'm not good enough. My work isn't impressive." But a growth mindset would ask, "What can I learn from this? How can I improve for next time?" In this true story, the applicant called the school and asked for feedback, not to argue, but to learn. The department was impressed by the initiative and, as it turned out, decided to admit her after all. Why concrete plans work? Research shows that vague intentions like promising to do something tomorrow often fail. Instead, make specific, detailed plans. For example, tomorrow at 10 a.m. I'll sit at my desk, close the door, and call the school. These detailed mental blueprints lead to real follow-through and success. Feeling bad? Still take action. Even when you're feeling down or defeated, growth is possible. Take action despite the feelings. Some of the most successful people didn't wait until they felt better, they acted through the discomfort. The rookie quarterback story. Picture this, you're a top college football star and get drafted to your dream NFL team. But once you're on the field, the pressure overwhelms you. The fixed mindset says, "Maybe I'm not cut out for this." But the growth mindset says, "This is a big transition and I need to learn." By talking with veteran players, studying game tapes, and admitting your struggles, you can learn, adapt, and improve. It's not about proving you're perfect, it's about committing to grow. The trap of entitlement. Some people think, "I deserve more, this job is beneath me." That's the fixed mindset talking. Instead of waiting for recognition, the growth mindset says, "What can I learn from where I am now? How can I grow, contribute, and build relationships?" Over time, that effort pays off not just in promotions or recognition, but in becoming a person others want to work with and support. Growth unlocks connection. Eventually, people realize that the fixed mindset, this need to appear perfect and superior, is actually a cage. It may have once offered protection, but now it holds them back from growth, connection, and genuine fulfillment. Denial, my life is perfect, a fixed versus growth mindset story. Many people stuck in a fixed mindset tend to avoid problems. If their life isn't perfect, they assume that means they're not good enough. So it's easier to pretend everything is fine. Let's imagine this situation. You seem to have it all, an amazing job, a happy marriage, great kids, and close friends. But here's the twist, one of those isn't real anymore. Without realizing it, your marriage is falling apart. The signs were there, but you misread them. You thought you were doing your duty, being the ideal husband or ideal wife, but your partner had been asking for more emotional connection. You didn't listen. And by the time you finally notice, it's too late. Your partner has emotionally checked out. How a fixed mindset responds. You always felt bad for people who got divorced. And now you're one of them. You feel worthless, rejected. Someone who knew you best doesn't want you anymore. For months, you struggle to find meaning or even function. You start to slowly feel a bit better, but still live under that cloud of self-judgment. Good days make you think, maybe I am okay. Bad days whisper, they were right about me. And every new relationship? You size them up, will they hurt me too? Shifting to a growth mindset. But here's how a growth mindset changes everything. Instead of deciding your marriage was either all good or all bad, you start to see it as something that stopped evolving because it lacked attention and care. You reflect. Why didn't you hear their need for closeness? In a fixed mindset, any request feels like criticism. Deep down, maybe you feared you couldn't meet their emotional needs. So instead of engaging, you tuned out. That's where the growth begins. You stop blaming and instead ask, what can I learn from this? What skills can I develop to communicate better in the future? It's not about judging yourself. It's about growth and gaining the tools to build healthier relationships moving forward. Now ask yourself, is there someone in your life trying to tell you something you've been unwilling to hear? Helping your child escape the fixed mindset trap. Let's talk about kids. Some children fall into a fixed mindset very early. They believe people are either smart or not smart, end of story. Imagine this. Your young son comes home from school and says, some kids have a bad brain. When you ask where he heard that, he proudly replies, I figured it out myself. He noticed some kids read faster or solved problems quicker and jumped to a conclusion. Soon, he resists trying hard. He wants everything to feel easy, proof that he's smart. If it gets hard, he quits. For example, after picking up chess quickly, he watches Searching for Bobby Fischer, a movie about a young chess prodigy. But instead of being inspired, he gets scared, what if I lose? He quits chess saying, I'm a champion, even though he won't play. He starts cheating at simple games to avoid losing. He constantly brags about being better than others. When you try to explain that others just need more practice, he refuses to believe it. How do you help a child like this? You realize talking isn't enough, you need to show him the growth mindset in action. So, every night at dinner, you ask questions like, what did you learn today? What mistake taught you something? What did you work hard on? Even you and your partner share your own stories of struggles, mistakes, and progress. Soon, your son gets into it. He still boasts sometimes, but now the family asks, that's great. But what did you learn? You even make his homework more fun and challenging, turning simple tasks into creative games. Over time, the family culture shifts. He still clings to the fixed mindset now and then, it's comforting. But as growth becomes the norm in your home, he begins to change. At first, he just mimics the language. Later, he starts to act on it. Eventually, he even starts pointing out fixed mindset thinking in others. The fixed mindset promises easy self-worth, just be special, and that's enough. But the growth mindset shows kids how to enjoy learning and keep improving no matter where they start. Effort that hurts, when kids work too hard for the wrong reasons. Sometimes the problem isn't too little effort, but too much. But it's not fueled by passion or curiosity. It's about fear. About trying to prove something. Imagine your daughter is a straight-A student, a brilliant flute player, and preparing for one of the top high schools. But every morning she's nauseous. Some days she even throws up. You think she just has a sensitive stomach and adjust her diet. But it doesn't help. Finally, a doctor refers you to a counselor who explains she's under too much pressure. The fixed mindset response. You follow the instructions, you make her go to bed earlier. But now she has less time to meet all the expectations. You can't believe easing up could help her. After all, those A's and achievements are important, right? But the counselor helps you realize this is about your need for perfection. Your daughter doesn't want to disappoint you. That pressure is what's making her sick. The growth mindset plan. So here's what changes. Flute lessons are paused. She can play for fun, not for performance. She starts learning how to study to understand, not just to get top scores. Teachers give her feedback that praises her learning process, not her grades. You learn how to support her curiosity and growth, not just her accomplishments. And finally, she visits schools that focus more on real learning, less on pressure. She chooses the one that makes her feel excited, not terrified. You begin to separate your needs from hers. You might have wanted the perfect daughter, but she needed something else. Acceptance and room to grow. Willpower, change, and the growth mindset. Let's say you want to make a change. Lose some weight, quit smoking, control your anger. You may think, if I'm strong, I'll do it. If I'm weak, I won't. That's fixed mindset thinking. People who think this way often don't plan well. They make bold resolutions, then feel ashamed when they fail, blaming themselves for not having willpower. Take Nathan, for example. He wanted to lose weight before his high school reunion. Instead of making a plan, he decided to just eat less. But once he started eating, he couldn't stop. Then he felt like a failure and ordered dessert. A friend told him, "Why not set aside food at the start? Or load your plate with veggies so it still feels full?" But Nathan refused. "I have to be strong," he said. Eventually, he tried a crash diet. He lost weight, looked good for the reunion, and then gained it all back. Real strength isn't about suffering. It's about smart strategies, consistency, and a mindset focused on learning and adapting. Anger and self-control. Many people struggle with managing their anger. A trigger sets them off, and suddenly they're yelling or saying things they regret. Often, they tell themselves that the next time will be different, yet the cycle continues. Anger issues can be particularly challenging in relationships, especially between partners and parents and children. It's not just about the things that upset us. We may also feel entitled to lose our temper when others don't follow our expectations. The situation. Picture this. You're a generally nice person, someone who loves their spouse and feels fortunate to have them. But when your spouse forgets to take out the overflowing garbage, you feel deeply upset, as if they've personally betrayed you. It starts with a mild complaint, but quickly escalates into harsh criticisms like, "I've told you 1,000,000 times," followed by, "You never get anything right." When they don't react the way you expect, you get even angrier, insulting their intelligence or character, saying things like, "Maybe you're not smart enough to remember the garbage," or "If you cared about anyone other than yourself." Then, in your fury, you bring up everything else you've been holding on to, past issues, judgments from others, and you end up driving your spouse away with your anger. The fixed mindset response. At first, you might feel justified in your anger, but soon guilt sets in and you realize you've gone too far. You reflect on all the ways your spouse is a supportive partner and feel sorry for your outburst. You might promise yourself that you'll do better next time, but because you've only focused on your intentions and not developed strategies to prevent the outburst, it's likely to happen again. The growth mindset and anger management. People with a growth mindset approach anger management differently. They recognize that it's not enough to simply hope things will improve. They need to actively work on strategies to prevent anger from taking over. Just as students in a growth mindset plan their study habits to succeed, someone with a growth mindset might plan ahead to prevent anger from flaring up. They might think about how to stay calm, avoid certain triggers, or create a plan for difficult conversations. People with a growth mindset understand that setbacks are part of the process. They ask themselves, what can I learn from this? What will I do differently next time? Instead of thinking of their anger as a battle between the good and bad parts of themselves. Handling anger, a growth mindset approach. In that situation with your spouse, consider why you became so upset. It might be that you felt unimportant or disrespected. Your reaction was to criticize them for not following through and then escalate to insults and judgments. This creates a cycle of anger and defensiveness. To break that cycle, try this. Instead of attacking them, calmly express how you feel. For example, when you didn't take out the garbage, it made me feel like my needs aren't important. Your spouse can then reassure you that they care and will make more effort in the future. When you feel your anger rising, try stepping away from this situation to collect your thoughts. Write down what you're feeling, then reflect on what's really going on. This helps you calm down before returning to the conversation. You can also work on loosening up some of your rigid rules, recognizing that each one is not a test of your spouse's respect for you. Humor can even help. If your spouse leaves socks in the living room, you could playfully ask, "What's the meaning of this?" with a smile. Adopting a growth mindset means accepting that every mistake is a chance to improve. When you don't view your anger as a sign of moral failure, you're better able to find strategies that help you manage it. Sustaining change. Whether it's losing weight, improving communication with your partner, or managing anger, change takes ongoing effort. Often, once people feel like they've made progress, like losing weight or having a breakthrough in communication, they stop doing the things that got them there in the first place. This is why maintaining progress is so important. For example, Alcoholics Anonymous emphasizes that people will always be vulnerable to relapse, which keeps them committed to doing what's necessary to stay sober. It's important to remember that mindset change isn't about learning a few tricks. If someone with a fixed mindset just tries using growth-oriented strategies without truly adopting a growth mindset, it can backfire. An example of fixed mindset in parenting. Wes, a dad with a fixed mindset, struggled to get his son Mickey to cooperate. Mickey was noisy and Wes just wanted quiet. After trying several growth mindset strategies, Wes saw an improvement in Mickey's behavior. But once things got better, Wes stopped using the strategies. He expected the change to last without any effort, and when Mickey's behavior slipped back, Wes became even angrier and more punitive. This same pattern can happen in relationships. For example, Marlene and Scott, a couple who constantly bickered, began using growth mindset strategies with the help of counseling. They stopped focusing on each other's flaws and started appreciating the positive things they did for each other. However, once the love and tenderness returned, they stopped putting in the effort, assuming that things should just stay good. When the bickering resumed, it was even worse because of their unmet expectations. The key to lasting change is realizing that adopting a growth mindset requires ongoing effort and commitment. It's not about quick fixes, but about embracing a new way of thinking that fosters growth, patience, and mutual support. The journey to a true growth mindset. In the past, people have mistakenly claimed to have a growth mindset even though their actions didn't align with it. There's a difference between simply using strategies for growth and genuinely committing to a mindset shift that embraces learning, self-improvement, and perseverance. Step 1. Embrace your fixed mindset. The first step toward adopting a growth mindset is acknowledging that everyone has some fixed mindset tendencies. This doesn't mean you should feel ashamed, it just means you're human. By accepting that fixed mindset exists within you, you're in a better position to change it. Step 2. Recognize your fixed mindset triggers. The second step is to become aware of what triggers your fixed mindset. For example, does it show up when you face a new challenge? Does it appear when you fail or when someone else outshines you? Understanding your triggers helps you manage your reactions and shift your mindset before it takes over. Step 3. Name your fixed mindset persona. Once you recognize your fixed mindset triggers, give your fixed mindset a name. This helps you depersonalize it and see it as something you can manage. Many people find it helpful to talk about their fixed mindset persona, understanding when it shows up and how it affects them. As you progress through this journey, remember that it's not about being perfect. It's about becoming more aware of your tendencies and learning how to change them. Introducing Gertrude, my fixed mindset persona. Let me introduce you to Gertrude, my inner voice that holds me back with her fixed mindset. She sneaks into my thoughts and undermines my confidence. The name Gertrude means strong spear, which suits her personality. She values strength, rejects effort, and believes that perfection is everything. Any failure or imperfection sets her off. If I swim 3 seconds slower than my best time, I'm not varsity material. If my self-portrait doesn't measure up to someone else's, I'm just not good at art. If I can't use as many fancy words as my older sister, then I'll never be as smart as she is. Gertrude convinces me that one failure is enough to destroy my chances of success. Sugar Daddy, my comfort zone protector. Then there's Sugar Daddy, my inner critic who sticks around during moments of failure, criticism, or discomfort. He's my comfort zone, telling me not to venture out because it's easier to stay where it's safe. As much as Sugar Daddy tries to keep me in his predictable, standstill world, I can feel our views starting to clash more and more, especially when I try to break free. Henrietta, the fear of public failure. Whenever I'm faced with failure, especially in front of others, Henrietta, my critical grandmother persona, makes an appearance. Henrietta is quick to blame others and rejects failure instead of learning from it. She makes me fear that if anyone sees me fail, they'll label me as a failure for good. Z, the mirror image of my fixed mindset. I also have Z, a persona that shows up after every rejection or missed opportunity. It's like a mirror of myself reminding me that I'm not good enough. I've always been passionate about writing, editor of my high school newsletter and the author of a now published novel. So when I applied to write for the Stanford Daily, I was excited. I put my heart into those application essays. When I found out my roommate got in instead of me, Z was furious. "How could you think you were capable?" she shouted, especially since my roommate barely put any effort into her application. Dale Denton, the voice of self-doubt. Finally, there's Dale Denton, inspired by Seth Rogen's character in Pineapple Express. Dale is my lazy, bumbling self-doubt who constantly fills my head with questions like, what if this success was a fluke? When things don't go as planned, he's right there to amplify the doubt. Recognizing your fixed mindset persona. Take a moment to reflect on your own fixed mindset persona. Do you have a name for it? Is it someone you know, a character from a book or movie, or maybe even a name you don't like? It's important to recognize the voice inside your head that holds you back. Step 4. Educating your fixed mindset persona. Once you know your fixed mindset persona and understand its triggers, it's time to educate it. Acknowledge its presence when it shows up, but don't let it control you. Instead, calmly explain why you want to push forward. For example, when you're about to take a risk, you might say, I know this might not work out, but I really want to try. Can you come along with me? When setbacks occur, don't banish your fixed mindset persona. Let it express its concerns, but then calmly reassure it by explaining your plan to move forward. I may not be great at this yet, but I have a plan. Let's give it a shot. When the pressure mounts and you start doubting others, talk to your fixed mindset persona. Understand that it's trying to keep you safe, but its methods are outdated. Help it understand that failure is part of the learning process and encourage it to be a part of your growth journey. The journey of growth. Everyone has a fixed mindset persona. It's how we react to challenges, failure, and criticism. By recognizing this, we can be more compassionate toward others. Instead of judging someone for acting out of a fixed mindset, understand that they, too, are struggling with their inner persona. The teacher who helped a student overcome fixed mindset. There's an inspiring story of a teacher who helped her students identify their fixed mindset personas. One student who struggled the most finally named his persona Dumping Dan. He felt like everything he did was wrong and that people dumped their frustrations on him. With the teacher's support, he learned to manage his fixed mindset and thrive. Moving forward with a growth mindset. Once you've named and understood your fixed mindset persona, the journey isn't over. You must continue to set goals and look for opportunities to grow, not just for yourself, but for those around you too. Each day brings new chances for growth, and by regularly checking in with your fixed mindset, you can make intentional progress. Using a daily reflection to foster growth. To keep yourself on track, create a daily routine where you reflect on opportunities for learning and growth. Write down concrete plans for how you will seize those opportunities. When setbacks occur, remind yourself that you can always adapt and try again. With each success, ask yourself how you can continue to grow. The road ahead. Changing your mindset is tough, but it's worth it. It won't solve all your problems, but it will enrich your life in ways you can't yet imagine. As you move forward, remember that you have the power to shape your mindset and direction. The growth mindset will always be there for you, guiding you toward a better future. Thank you for listening to Mindset, the New Psychology of Success by Carol S. Dweck. This book reminds us that our true potential is not fixed, it's shaped by how we think, learn, and grow over time. Whether you're facing challenges, learning new skills, or just trying to become a better version of yourself, remember, effort, resilience, and a willingness to grow are what truly lead to success. If this message resonated with you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with someone who's ready to unlock their mindset. Keep learning, keep evolving, and I'll see you in the next one.